Hello and a warm welcome to Newsfile. It's Saturday, the 14th of April, 2012, and we're grateful for the gift of life and the opportunity to come your way with another edition of your weekly news analysis program. Here, we take time to question some of the key events and submissions that made the headlines this week and hopefully arrive at a better informed position as a nation on how to make things better in the near future. Now, this year, we've got a number of interesting innovations coming up on the show. And so I'd like to ask you to make some time every Saturday morning between 9 a.m. and noon and pay particular attention, as well as be a part of the show with your comments, because a lot will be happening here. Now, let me start off with a little call on all who have not registered in the ongoing registration exercise to find some time, make some sacrifice, spend an hour or two if you have to, and register. Building a nation, like they say, isn't the job of just politicians and civil servants, civil society groups, and the media alone. It's a collective responsibility in which you too must contribute. So please don't use busy as an excuse to shirk your civic responsibility. Be part of the process. Go out there, register, vote, and comment so that we grow together as a nation in the direction that we'll see fit. Because if you refuse to do so, other people will do it on your behalf. My name is Kojo Oponkroma. Welcome. Let's get started. Phase 2 of the biometric registration exercise has ended. This time round, the security agencies had a lot of drama to deal with, and in some cases failed to deal with. First, it was Superintendent Kwesi Ofori of the Tafo-Pankrono district who was accused of bias by the NDC for placing a bounty on the head of a man he declared wanted. Then ACP Awuni, head of MTTU here in Accra, ordered the arrest of the former regional minister, Niama Ashite, for interfering with the registration process. He released him later on the orders of the IGP and apologized for insulting the former minister. Now, the NDC in the Greater Accra region is asking for his removal. Eslo Usu, NPP aspiring MP for Ablekuma South, was reportedly beaten in the Ododo constituency while police officers looked on. The MPP had earlier called for the resignation of the IGP, Paul Teriakwe, if he feels that he isn't up to the job of ensuring security. All these come on the back of earlier reports of intimidation and violence in some parts of the country. This morning, there are a number of angles that we want to look at these developments from. Political parties have similarly, in times past, even asked for resignation. Sometimes civil society groups have had cause to complain about the conduct of security agencies. Is it all part of the political game, or maybe things are taking a turn for the worse this time round? The president is calling for calm. He is reported as saying he isn't a law enforcement officer to physically arrest miscreants. But government is responsible for ensuring security. Never mind that the president and his party are running for re-election. Is government, is the president doing an adequate job in providing security? The MPP's flag bearer is calling on the president to put his words into action. Should he or should he not also tone down his rhetoric and ask his supporters to do the same? Some say it's a bit too antagonistic. We'll get into all of these angles when I introduce my guests to you. And then later this morning, government's communication team has launched an 87-page green book that extols the successes of the Mills administration in 3 years. Does the MPP's record in its first 3 years compare? How true is the claim that a good number of the things mentioned in this book are actually misleading? How much impact have these achievements made in your life or in your pocket? We will find out. And finally, government has announced a pullout from the STX deal and is awaiting advice from the Attorney General's Department on what to make of the legal relationship between Ghana and the STX group now. The minority has served notice that it would ask government to fully account for every cedi lost on this deal. Is this a genuine case of a good project that just failed to materialize? Or maybe government was just foolhardy? Have we suffered any loss that could have been avoided? And should people be held accountable for it? And now it appears both the MPP and the NDC have failed in delivering on the affordable housing promise in recent years. Can we learn lessons on how to successfully do this next time round, minus the political rancor? These are the subjects we are discussing this morning on Newsfile. Newsfile is brought to you in association with MTN, everywhere you go, Def Traco Limited, Hisense, and TTB. We will go for a break. When we return, I'll introduce my guests who are going to help us with our analysis this morning. And I encourage you to join us with your own thoughts by text 1422 across networks, or by sending us an email, newsfile@myjoyonline.com. You can also send us a text on 1760 across networks. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Newsfile on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra and on the Joy News television channel on your multi-TV digibox. As I mentioned earlier, you are always welcome to share with us your thoughts by text 1422 across networks or 1760 across networks, or you can send them to us by email newsfile@myjoyonline.com. We're starting off with our biometric registration exercise and the security concerns that have come up. But first, let me introduce to you my guest. To my extreme left, Gabi Asare-Chiridako. He is with the Dankwa Institute. I haven't had you around in a while now. Gabi, good morning.
Morning, Kojo.
Thank you for joining us. Also this morning, joining us is the Honorable Edouard Sari. He's a member of Parliament for the Adenta constituency. Chief, welcome.
Thanks, my brother.
To my extreme right, Abdul Malik Kweku Bako Jr. is the managing editor of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Chief, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And shortly joining us is Mr. Kobie Champong. He's a deputy minister for the Interior Ministry, joining us for our discussion. So perhaps we'll start off with that biometric registration exercise and the issues that have come up following the commencement of even the first phase of it. A number of issues, and as I alluded to earlier, we had a few minutes to comment on what had happened in the Tafo Pankrono district, I think last week on this show, but this week as well, a number of interesting, new, and perhaps even more worrying developments. Here in Accra, the former regional minister was arrested by the officers of the MTTU at the Central Police Command here in Accra. He was subsequently released on the orders of the IGP. ACP Awuni, who, may I say, superintended that exercise, later apologized for insulting the former minister. Elsewhere, Eslo Owusu, in the company of some other MPP signatories, went to the Ododo constituency to encourage people to register. She reports she was beaten up. Subsequently, they made a report to the police. She went there the day after. Things were calm. We were told later that there were other persons on the streets issuing threats. A number of security issues have come up. But you know, ahead of past elections, even civil society groups have had cause to complain about the conduct of security agencies. Political parties have even similarly asked for some resignations. Is this all part of the big political game? Or maybe things are taking a very bad turn this time around? Is the police as an institution just playing its old game of regular aloofness, as some may describe it, when members of the opposition cry foul? Or genuinely, our police service is still an institution not fully up to the professional task of proactive law enforcement? Let's examine these. Are some officers just overstepping their bounds, maybe not even up to the task, and perhaps worth of correcting before things get murkier? And then we'll look at the politics as well. I'm sure you've heard the president. He's argued that he's not a law enforcement officer to physically arrest miscreants, but government is responsible for ensuring security. Is government doing its job? The MPP's flag bearer is asking the government and the president to put action behind words. Should he also perhaps be telling his supporters to tone down the rhetoric a little bit? Gabi, perhaps I'll start with your thoughts on the security challenges we are facing and how we are dealing with them in this biometric exercise.
Well, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. I haven't been here for a while. I think really, to me, it tells of, if like, difficult times ahead, because this is just a registration exercise. So what about, is it December 7th, when we have the elections? And it also tells us that the election starts with the registration. If you can get as many people on the voter list as possible, then clearly you are halfway home. I think, first of all, the police have been quite unprofessional in some ways. I can't say always, because, you know, I'm sure if you look at 90% or even more in terms of where the registration exercise is going on, we don't hear any violence. I went to register yesterday, no problems where I went, and I'm sure many Ghanaians can attest to that. But really, it's just that the areas where there have been violence and the response of the police have been very worrying, because it tells that they're willing to be neutral, and their interpretation of neutrality, it's allowing it to go on without interference. and which goes against their constitutional duties, which is a traditional way of policing, which is to maintain law and order. So that has been worrying. And particularly when you have a police officer within a district who feels that this is the measure I have to take, which is legitimate, okay, in order to, if you like, apprehend alleged offenders. And then those in Accra can come and say, we dissociate ourselves from it. It's also worrying. I listened to Eslowusu and Abu Jinapo. They said the police were right there when they were being assaulted. And the police decided that neutrality means don't do your job, which is to maintain law and order. You know, so that it's worrying. The president's words ordinarily would have been encouraging, but we've heard them over and over again. And the aspect of the president's words which I found was worrying was when he entered into that realm of if you like, the kind of cheap politics that we've had in terms of politicians should not provoke. To me, coming from a law professor, is very worrying, because you are trying to say that provocation can justify violence. There's no defense in the law that, Kwajo, if I come to you and insult you and you hit me, you can use that as a defense. In fact, there's slander, there's defamation, and even all other things. But you can't, a president is very worrying when you have a president actually saying that we should also not provoke. Because really what you're saying, because I've heard before that, I'd heard Nilante van der Poel trying to say, justify to a point. I must admit, he also said that it was unfortunate what happened to Esla and Abu. But he said that they went there to more or less insult the Ghana people without specifically telling us what they said. And they also insist that they went there to tell the ordinary Ghanaians who were trying to register so as to exercise their franchise that, look, this is the law, go ahead and register. And that then is interpreted as provocation for the people who live within the constituency. And then you have the president adding to this and say that, look, don't provoke. I find that worrying, because there's absolutely no justification for violence unless, of course, it is acting in self-defense. So those things are worrying. But you heard of Isaac Asimov. I think it was probably the greatest science fiction writer of the 20th century. And he said, violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. And I think perhaps we should take some cue for it. These are my opening remarks. I
just want to ask of you another question that has come up during this period. Some have suggested that the NPP's posturing, even leading up to this, smacks of an antagonistic attitude, and that's why they are being met with intimidation in some of these areas. And they point specific attention to the all die be die comment that has been made. You have explained over and over again that it is about rising up for your defense, but some interpret that to mean that the NPP is coming off as an antagonistic party in this exercise, and that's why they are being met with such hostility in some of these cases.
I think I actually heard Akufo-Addo on your Good Morning show explaining what he meant by all die be die. And without actually repeating him, I think if you situate when that pronouncement was made, it followed several incidents of what? Violence in by-elections. Was it Triponi, Atiwa, and that 6 polling stations elections in Akwatia, and also Agbobloshi. And the party then feel that to some extent, and that this president, the so-called Asmunjue president, because before that we hadn't seen this kind, this level of violence in by-elections, which more or less sometimes even the results are known before you start, considering who is strong in that constituency. And beyond that, you haven't heard or seen any proactive pronouncements or moves on the part of the president or on the part of the government to apprehend those who, if like, instigated or prosecuted the violence. So that becomes worrying. And considering also what happened at Bobloshi, broad daylight, 3 people were killed. Names of suspects were given. We don't even know if any of them have been questioned by the police. No statement has been made by the president. The only time you hear the president speaking about violence, it's when it is not against MPP. You know, so it becomes worrying. And if you have virtually half of the nation feeling under threat, because they think the police, first of all, are being neutral. Neutral means if it's against MPP, don't act, just watch. The president himself doesn't seem concerned about it. Then the Constitution allows you to defend yourself. You know, so if you say the violence has perhaps been motivated by the Order Ibidai, the Order Ibidai was what? Inspired by the inaction of the government or of the police, you know, in the face of violence against MPP people.
Mr. Dresser, is the police as an institution just, for some people, playing the old game of, you know, aloofness when members of the opposition cry foul? And, you know, if you trace perhaps a bit of our recent history, you find the opposition party often complaining that, listen, people who are associated to the ruling government are up to a lot of thuggery. You know, sometimes reports are made, they are even freed. I'm sure we've had countless incidents right here on this show where people, I mean, these ones will talk of Agbobloshi, these ones will talk of Bashir, we read here and there. Is the police, the neutral arbiter in the middle, as an institution, just playing this old game of, for some regular aloofness when members of the opposition cry foul? Or genuinely we have a problem where the institution is still not fully up to the professional task of proactive law enforcement?
Thank you, Kojo. I will start by saying that if there's one institution that is really suffering at the hands of politicians, it is the police service. Because whatever they do, even on their own line of duties, it will either offend one party or the other. So certainly, I think if people will be objective in their analysis of whatever is happening with the police at this time, they will also not be wrong to think that it is the normal politics. I would want to say it is the normal politics. It's going to be like that for a very long time. Because what are the issues we are looking at? We are looking at security as it pertains around the registration centers and areas where registration exercise is taking place. What is the police expected to do at these centers? If there is a problem or an issue crops up, they come in, or you either report to the police, and then they go through their own procedures. That is, probably you write a statement, and then they go ahead to investigate, and then whatever actions they have to take, they take it. But here is a case where we expect them to be on the scene. How many policemen do we have in the first place? To be at 7,000 polling centers as as we have going around at the moment. We don't have the numbers. So certainly, in my constituency, for instance, there was one time I was visiting a particular polling center. And the fact that an elderly person had just walked in, and these gentlemen and ladies at the EC officials had given called the lady to come and, you know, go through the process because she's of old age. Some people who had been there for like 4 hours and had been in a queue waiting got agitated. No, we won't allow that. So all I want to say is that people will certainly raise issues, but it is up to all of us to try and calm nerves down. And those of us who especially are in leadership positions in one way or the other, we should lead the way. But if you find a situation as we had it, of course, you noted the issue of Niama Ashite and the Greater Accra Regional Commander. What happened?
The MTTU commander.
MTTU commander. He went to visit some of his polling centers in his jurisdiction as a candidate and raised an issue. The next thing that happened was that he had been arrested, kept behind the counter for so many hours. Of course, I'm not saying that because he's a member of parliament or whatsoever, he's above the law. But what you find is that the same police that we are talking about is trying to restrain a politician. And then one group, that is the politicians from, let's say, Niama State's party, are, having a problem, a challenge with it. Then you take the case of Eshla Owusu, who also went out of, she's also a candidate. She went out of her jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction?
Yes, that is her constituency.
Yeah, but jurisdiction.
Well, certainly she's a candidate.
Yeah, but don't say jurisdiction.
Please, allow me. She went out of her constituency into somebody else's territory. And from the reports, yes, that place is somebody else's territory.
So she went out of her constituency, Ablekuma South, into
Odododio. Please. There's this tree proverb.
What does that mean?
To which, if you go to a funeral with your thumb, you are likely to come back with some slaps.
Connect it for me.
Yes, I will. From the reports we had, she spewed out some offensive language to the people of the Ga people, that the area where this exercise is taking place is not only for Gas, okay, which is fair, but it's in a manner in which it was spoken, offended the people. That's why sometimes when we are all, you can address an issue without offending people by it. But this is the posture and all of those, what will I call it? Spewing out all manner of insinuations. I wouldn't say should elicit that kind of reaction from people. But please, this is a society we've all lived in for a while. So if you want peace, you go in peace. But if you want war, some people are also prepared for it. I'm not saying it is justified for anybody to do so. But when we are advising the chick, is it you do two you also advise the other person. That is what we expect of people like Eshla Owusu. So that as leaders, whenever we go to places like that, there is some expectation that we don't go. I am surprised. I saw the bruises on her face. It's unfortunate it happened to her. But please, I don't also think that her posture, okay, even after the incident, I listened to her on Joy FM. The kinds of things she said and, unrepentant outlook. For me,
it was helpful.
Yes, you see, so we are going there the next day with our own security and all that. You see, then you are telling us that you have your own system in place and we should put away what the nation or the mandate of the police and watch you do things your own way.
Which is what takes me back to the, to the fulcrum of our discussion, that beyond the subjective interpretations that let's say, those on one side will give to Nyama Shite's conduct or those on the other side will give to Eshla Owusu's conduct, the laws require the state security institutions to, when anything of these sorts happen, do a diligent job. Over the years, everybody can point to many incidents in which that hasn't exactly happened. What is your understanding of why that is the case? Is there a way by which we can quickly turn that around, or perhaps it's going to be the normal trend for a while now and we can only appeal to everybody to behave?
From where I sit, I think it's going to be very difficult. Okay, it's going to be very difficult to instill that kind of objectivity from the police perspective on issues pertaining to politics. I have personally had an experience when my police commander in Adenta We saw people busing in, you know, people from who necessarily don't come from the constituency at dawn, sometimes in the full glare of everybody. We called on the police commander. He came over, he saw these people. He couldn't do anything. This was in 2008. Commander was just, and 3 weeks after that, he was removed from the constituency.
And you won. It's a good thing.
He was removed. Gabi, please allow me.
Excellent.
Why am I saying this? Then you will find there's a similar situation under NDC. How will you place these two situations? That's why, exactly. So for me, I think that
it's not a healthy strategy.
it is not. I wish the police became, or they posted themselves as professionals as they ought to be. But we as a society, we have polarized the system, okay? So much so that even when the police is doing their job, it is seen in the light of politics, okay?
And you don't see any remedy apart from appealing to the political actors to behave?
No, that's why I'm saying that if you are wearing a particular type of glass, if it's a dark shade, certainly you see everything around you dark. So that's what I'm saying. We, the politicians, have made it so. We have allowed the system, we've polarized the system along political lines. If it is someone who is from NDC who is arrested, the next day, the people of NDC will go and rally around the person, you know, make so much noise, and before you realize, he is out.
So we have cowed the police into the situation in which
For
they
me,
find
that
themselves.
is what I
Kobe,
think.
let me ask if you agree with that analysis. Do you?
That we've called the police into
The situation in which they find themselves.
well, partly so. And the reason why I would say partly so is that look, we need to put everything in proper context. That is what is important. If we do this thing based on a lack of contextual intelligence, we won't get anywhere. Let me tell you. After so many years of independence, this country's politicians still engage in what I call the simplicities of body politics. I did this, you did this, you didn't do it well, I can do it better. Without looking at the broader picture of what it is that you are doing and what interest is served. Does it serve the collective interest of Ghanaians? That's where we are, and this is what is bringing about all these things. I mean, for me, I find it strange. A simple registration exercise becomes a whole completely different thing. There are rules governing the registration exercise. Very simple. You go to a police station or a registration center, you produce an ID. If the ID is verified as you proceed, you register. If any of the polling stations sitting there representing a political party feels you are not from that area, you have the option of what? Going for a challenge form. Once the challenge form is issued, that's it. You are not giving your card until the challenge is resolved. That's it. End of story. A very simple process. Why should we go through all this mayhem that is going on? Because people think in the analysis of how they won or lost an election in a particular area, they need to move people from one direction to the other. And that is what is happening. That is the truth. That is what is happening. Other than that, what is the business of a slow? So you are a parliamentary candidate for Masam. You don't think it is important to educate your people in your constituency to go and register. But you jump over to go and educate them to go and register. What business do you have in Obidu? And that is the body politic I'm talking about. You see, the very things that we need to do and do well, we don't. The things that we need to discard, we rather go ahead with it. What is your business in Obidu? When you are a parliamentary candidate, you are not just an ordinary person, a parliamentary candidate. You've left your constituency. You think your constituency, the folks there don't need education. You go into another constituency to go and educate them. I mean, what is that? That is an affront and insult to those people in that constituency. You have no business being there. That is one. Now, you talk about language.
Let me hold you there. I'm told we have a little challenge with your sound output. I'm going to take a very quick break at this moment while we fix Kobe's sound output so that we can hear him better. Let me just remind our listeners and our viewers that Newsfile is brought to you in association with MTN Everywhere You Go, Devtraco Limited, Hisense, and TTB. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Newsfile, and please send us a text 1422 across networks or 1760 across networks. You can also send us an email, newsfile@myjoyonline.com. Kobe, you're making your submissions, and while at that, some argue that it is because of these, I think this is wrong, I think that is wrong, that we need the police service, which falls under your ministry, to do an excellent independent job. What seems to be the challenge, for which reason over the years, everybody, on the other side, depending on where you are, you're either praising or complaining. And as we have come where we have come, is there a way to turn it around?
See, the police, as far as I'm concerned, is doing a very good job. There's no two ways about it. They are doing a very good job. One, the police cannot be everywhere all the time. They need a lot of cooperation from the citizen. That is it. Just like you are fighting crime, you need cooperation from every citizen. That is what the police needs. If there is an issue somewhere and you don't report it to the police, but make noise on the airwaves, how do you get that resolved? You can never get that resolved. The police need information that they will follow in form of leads and come to a conclusion with a conviction or no conviction. That's it. So if you blame the police in this instance, I have a hard time understanding that. Granted, there are a lot of policemen who behave unprofessionally in the discharge of their functions. Yes, it's like a human institution. You can find so many of them. I've been victim of that before, so I know there are policemen who behave unprofessionally. But that is not to say the police is not doing a good job. They are doing a good job. Look, if you find people who are not supposed to be in an area, disrupting a simple registration process, and you call the police or you alert the police to it, why wouldn't the police come and make sure that that situation is not resolved? You see, a lot of these issues are very simple. We have formed a certain impression that our whole fortunes in 2012 election hinges on what is supposed to happen during the registration process. Because the more people you can put in, the more you can whip them to go to the polls and get an election result for you. Forgetting that in the process of doing this, you are setting the stage for a bigger issue that will come down the line. And we need to basically come back. And the language, the rhetoric is not helping. I mean, Gabi was blaming the president, but the president never said anywhere that all die be die. Has the president ever said anywhere that all die be die? It comes from a presidential candidate. It's not an ordinary person, a presidential candidate, a potential president. You say all die be die. You said Itiwa, what did you teach at Itiwa? What did you show at Itiwa? That is what has set the stage for what is going on. And people need to be bold. Kennedy Japan was on the political platform in the full view of all the heavyweights in the NPP. What did he say about the police? He said the police should be lynched. Lynched. You know the meaning of the word lynched? Killed. You want the police to be killed. And yet you run to the police for protection.
Did he say that?
He said it.
The police should be lynched.
Yes, he said the police should be lynched. Added that when an NDC guy slaps you, slap him 3 or 4 times. That is a politician. That is a legislator. The person who makes the laws. Telling people that go kill the policeman. Nobody found anything wrong with that statement. Nobody till date. None of the MPP leadership has repudiated him for that kind of comment. And you think everything should be all right. Other people are sitting back and saying, oh, so this is the game.
Let me just ask you a quick follow-up question, and these are preliminary comments. Beyond your role as a politician, you also have a job as a deputy interior minister.
Yes.
So beyond all of these explanations that you give, because I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine it will be disappointing for you to hold your office and leave your office and say, well, these were the reasons for which what happened happened. As a leader of that ministry, as a leader whose ministry superintends the work of the police service, what exactly, because part of the work of government is to ensure security, what exactly is being done to ensure that in spite of all the explanations that are going around, we still manage to do a better job? I imagine that is what you want to pat yourself on the back for achieving at the end of the day.
See, it's not a question of what are you doing. The police has a mandate to ensure law and order. They are carrying out that mandate.
You think they're doing fine on it?
They're doing fine.
Nothing more can be done about it.
It's not a question of nothing more can be done about it. A lot can be done based on the kind of information we get, the police can get. And that is what will lead them to do that kind of things. For instance, I can give you plenty places. Ejuso, Asokode, Kumewu, Agogo, Mampong, Obogu, Jwaso, Kufor Camp. These are places where people are being prevented from registering because they have sounding names. These are settlers, migrants within Ghana who have moved there now. When these things happen, you know what Just send a word to the police that, look, go and observe. I didn't tell them to go and interfere. Go and observe what is going on. They came back and said, the party agents have now stood their grounds and the registration is going on. Because they've gone back to the simple process that if you have a challenge,
pick a challenge form.
Pick a challenge form. That is how effective you are asking the police to work, not to go and interfere.
Kweku? Yeah. So far, we have heard the explanations, we have heard the descriptions, but for many people, it doesn't give them confidence that over the last 12, 16, 18 years in our democratic exercise, some of these things that we would have imagined we could overlook and move on and better the exercise will be going away anytime soon.
Well, I would have been surprised if anybody expected that would have a registration exercise without some of these hiccups. As I said last week, this is nothing new.
But is it getting worse, or is it just, you know, just
well,
a normal
Before I make that judgment, I would want to look at some other factors. You know, last week we admitted here that the passion with which parliamentary candidates or some parliamentary candidates are pursuing their ambition informs some of these situations that we are having. My brother Kobe was just making a point about people wanting to, you know, bus or, if you like, transport voters from some constituency to another in order to, you know, give themselves some advantages. That may be true, and it cuts across the political divide, if one has to be very honest, because the incident in Odododio is not happening only there. There are other examples elsewhere, and it cuts across the political divide. But the cure, assuming without admitting that you have that mischief is there and you've dictated it, what is the cure for that mischief? Those other parliamentary candidates, those who feel that they are being put at a disadvantage, have adopted certain measures which are also not in line with law. He indicated that you're supposed to fill challenge forms. Is that what some people are doing? Are some people not publicly, have they not publicly declared that they would take measures to prevent? The emphasis is on the word prevent. They are not talking of challenging. To prevent people who they assume have no homes or houses in those constituencies from registering. When you do so, which is which? It's a clash. You think somebody is committing an illegality by seeking to transfer people from elsewhere to come and register in order to put you at a disadvantage. And you who think you know the law also publicly declare that I will take steps, I will resist with my blood. What is the difference between that and all die be die? And that you will prevent people from registering when you know that there is a law. So let's be fair and say that it's true, it's isolated. I am with Gabi in the sense that 90% of the areas, there is no problem. So let's not also overstate or exaggerate and make it look as if this is a basket case. We are collapsing, and for that matter, our democratic credentials are entirely out of the window. No, but it still affects us. We know media coverage alone and the effect it has on the international perception is not good enough for Ghana after 20 years. So I'm not for a second underestimating the effects of what is going on. But going to the roots, see, take the Oslawusu incident, which of course is reprehensible in my candid opinion. I mean, visiting violence, macho violence on Oslawusu because she was out of her constituency, in another constituency, encouraging people to vote. I'm not sure which law she violated. There's a distinction between the constituency and the registration center. By the laws, the registration center, you enter there with accreditation. Approved. Registration centers is not synonymous with the entirety of the constituency. So nothing stopped Oslawusu from going anywhere in this country to motivate people to vote, to register in order to enable them vote when the election time comes. If she had gone into a registration center and misconducted herself, she would have violated the law. If I had a police chief, Accra police chief, she appeared together to have been given access. They spoke to registration officers. The policemen claimed they were there. Nothing went wrong. And they left. That's what the police are saying. It was out of the registration center that violence was visited on her. Now we are being told that because she's not the parliamentary candidate of Odododio, then she has no interest,
no business,
or business rather, to go there. But there are thousands of examples of the party agents, party reps, leaders, cutting across the constituencies in this country. Hundreds of examples. Out there, motivating people to go and register. The only thing is that there has been no problem. So it's not new, it's no news. That is why I'm saying we have heard people, Kobe just said people with airway sounding names are not being allowed to register. The same complaint is being made in Odododio. Haven't we heard it? That people whose names don't sound like a Ga, or people who don't speak Ga, are also being prevented. I had a typical Ga, a proud Ga, Professor Michael Quay, say this yesterday. So you see, let's just cut out the selectivity. Some of these problems are happening and it's across the divide. Every political party, and especially sometimes other parties, I'll be honest with you, and I said this last week, is the passion with which some individual candidates are pursuing their parliamentary ambitions. The Amboche's place, there was a similar incident. There are so many examples across that the NDC may have legitimate complaints to make, the same way CPP or NPP. Of course, at this stage, it's the two major parties
who seem to be over. But how about how it is being handled?
Yes, I'll come there. I first wanted to establish this point. You know, so if, to conclude on that aspect, if somebody goes into a registration center and was not accredited, misconducted himself or herself there, the laws are available. The legibility criteria for who becomes a voter is all here. It's documented. If you go to CI-12, it's all there. So there's nothing new really for us to look for in order to cure some of these perceived aberrations. Now, how it's being handled? I was out here last week, fully in support of the IGP's intervention and open declaration of police readiness to deal with the problems and all the rest. I thought it was good. They made the EC, all that. It was a good signal. You know, sometimes you need to send out that signal. But I've had some problems. And last week, we established the first case here. Tafu, the incident that happened there. The police officers, the divisional commissioner, commander, Kwesi Fori, position on the matter and how the police administration sought to handle it. As I said, it was an avoidable indiscretion on the part of the police administration to have publicly distanced itself from what the divisional commander had done. Considering the context, the man was confronted by some hooliganism in the streets relative to the registration exercise. I'm even told he went to court for an arrest warrant, and then that bounty element comes on. If he had erred there, assuming without admitting he had erred, he made a point about like applying reasonable force. I think that is a standing order, if you like, operating order in the police thing. Recently, police had a battle with armed robbers. I'm not sure they took a mobile phone to call the IGP to ask if they could shoot back. So all Kwesi Fori was saying that dependent on the level of confrontation and challenge from the opposition, that is, opposition not parties, I'm talking of those elements engaged in the mischief, the police will apply reasonable force. If you go out there and issue that statement, and are the police telling us that they haven't had the opportunity, and I have records of it, where many times they've used internal procedures to query police officers, particularly senior ones, in order not to, one, demoralize, and two, to send wrong signals about police, lack of police cohesion on an issue? There are thousands of examples. So discretion, they should have applied their discretion to have used that thing well. When the NPP announced that the IGP should resign, I was against it, and I'm still against it. I didn't think it was sufficient grounds for that call. My view was that that too was targeting the head. In any case, remove him, and who appoints who? So it was a futile call. The same contest, here we are. A parliamentary candidate, an ex-regional minister, goes to a constituency, his constituency to ensure that certain things are done. He ends up having a confrontation with the police. I had the Greater Accra chairman of the NDC, who is actually a blood.
Mr. Adekoka, you mean?
Yes, we are cousins. I had him yesterday. His first point is that the regional minister is in bed, he's sick. I think he's even hospitalized or something. Two, that Awuni also more or less launched an attack on the president. I heard Awuni, I didn't hear that. You interviewed him. I thought he made the point that the president, even the president, knowing the law, will not do that kind of thing. But here we are, some packaging has been done of what Awuni was supposed to have done, and in spite of the man having the honesty to even apologize for issuing an insult. Yes, he was a man of honor. Many people would have denied. You don't have even a recorded proof. Many police officers would have denied that I didn't say it or I don't recall I said it. But a man of honor admitted to having said that. Of course, still defended his case. We are being asked by a party regional chairman, we are being told that they are asking the police command to transfer this man out of Accra because they cannot stay with him here. What are the political parties up to? And what would the police high command do? Look, at the end of the day, I tell you, this is like neutralizing the effectiveness of the police. It doesn't mean that when we have evidence of police inaction or complicity, we shouldn't bring it out. And I've brought some out in my view. Not exactly in complicity or inaction, but the way Kwesi Fori's thing was handled was the police falling on its own dagger.
Let me just, I'll give you an opportunity to react. I just want to play an insert of President Mills and of Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo as they comment on some of these incidents, and then I'll come back. Kobe, I'll give you an opportunity to react. And we will look at the effect of what Kweku calls neutralizing the independent arbiter, the police service. We're just hitting 10 a.m. this morning on Newsfile. Stay with us. First, let's take a listen to President Mills and then to Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Words are never enough. You hope that they will be supported by deeds. And that's where some of us have a problem. Many of the incidents of violence that are taking place, especially the shameful episode that occurred yesterday in the Odododio constituency in Accra, where a parliamentary candidate and another member of our party were out there canvassing and urging people to go and register, suffered violence with the police looking on and not being able to do anything about it. That, for me, is a very regrettable step, especially when you consider that the constituency in question is one of those being sought after by one of the president's own aides. So you wonder about these comments of the president. Either he doesn't seem to have any authority over his own aides, or he's deceiving the Ghanaian people when he says he wants a peaceful process. We see no effort being made to bring to book those who are responsible for these violence.
Our security forces have been instructed and equipped to deal with all the situations which are likely to threaten the peace and security that we enjoy. And from the report that I'm getting, the security forces are playing their expected role. Not everybody will agree. There are some who also think that the president should be directly in charge of enforcement of laws. Indeed, unfortunately, the president is not a law enforcement officer. The president cannot be a prosecutor. These are not powers which have been conferred on the president. The president's responsibility is to ensure that the security agencies are in a position to perform their given assignment. It is important that we all deal with one another in an open manner and in the best of faith. Utterances, statements, and pronouncements which are likely to provoke people into taking the law into their own hands are not the things that one should encourage. I therefore want to reiterate the call that I've made very often to our security agencies. No one or no group is above the law. And I know that they are determined to ensure that those who break the law, especially during this time, face the full rigors of our laws.
First, you heard the MPP's flag bearer, Nana Danko Akufo-Addo, make his comments on this subject, and President Mills also make his comments on this subject. It's exactly 10 a.m. Your thoughts are welcome. 1422 across networks, 1760 across networks. So you can send them by email, newsfile@myjoyonline.com. Kobe, you wanted to react?
Yes, I'm reacting to the police issues that Kweku seemed to raise and say the police fell on their own sword. With regards to the Kwesi Fori issue, Kwesi Fori is a divisional commander. He has a regional commander. Okay? He cannot sit in his office and issue instructions that people should be shot on sight. It is against the rules of enforcement and against the rules of engagement.
Did he say that?
Go read Daily Guide. It was there.
Did he say that?
Read the Daily Guide. It was published.
But you are the deputy
That's
minister
what
of
I'm saying.
Interior.
If he did,
no, forget about Daily Guide. I'm asking you.
Listen.
You are the boss.
Gabby, let me
Forget
make my
about
point.
Daily
Yes,
Guide.
let me make my point.
Okay, sir.
Secondly, he had no business placing a bounty on somebody's head. He had no business placing a bounty on somebody's head. The first question that arises out of it is that who was going to pay for that bounty? Was he going to pay from his own pocket? Or was going to ask the police administration to pay for it? If the police administration was going to pay for it, had he consulted with them on placing a bounty on somebody's head? These are mundane things that you have to understand. Look, Kojo, you can argue with a policeman, okay? You can argue with a policeman and even go to his face and say everything. The policeman, as a rule in their rule books, is not supposed to do anything to you. The moment you touch him, he can prefer a charge of what? Assault against you. That is how it is. Let's come back to Awuni. Yes, I can understand where Kweku is coming from. But Awuni has had too many of such instances where he just takes some public officials for the sake of taking them on. I'll give you an example. He insulted the mayor on air. What did the mayor do? Okovanapoy was coming from the Spintex Road. The place was jammed. He travels with an outrider. He also has a policeman as a bodyguard. He gets there, he tells the policeman in the outrider, look, let's help clear the traffic. Awuni gets on there, the mayor is cutting cheap popularity. That's why he's gone to clear traffic. That is not his job. Put it in the proper context. What the mayor did, was it wrong? Was it wrong? Granted, he's not supposed to direct traffic on a normal basis, but this was an exceptional circumstance. And he had with him a policeman, 2 policemen. You go on air and insult the guy, call him names. I brought him into my office, asked him, go and apologize to the mayor on the quiet, because he is the person you would have to work with as far as this city is concerned. He never did. There are so many instances of this man doing this kind of thing.
And so the point is?
The point I'm raising is he acted unprofessionally.
Which goes
He
into the
acted
bigger,
unprofessionally.
which goes into the bigger subject, and I would like to bring Gabby and I like to call him Swagger in on this bit of our discussion. The fear is that by all of these acts and by all of these explanations being given, we are gradually neutralizing our police service, and the lesson from other places where there have been conflagrations are that when you begin neutralizing the security agencies, bastardizing the judiciary, you create a situation where people have no longer the confidence in the sovereign and begin to resort to their own methods of protecting themselves. How do we ensure, and that's the final angle we are wrapping up with, how do we ensure that we don't, as we persist in this exercise, end up just, bastardizing the police and the other agencies that are responsible for law enforcement so that our society doesn't run into chaos?
Could you remember I said in my earlier submission that the kind of system we have.
And please speak up so
okay,
I can hear you better.
Right. The kind of system we have, especially where the two major parties, okay, are almost at each other's throat, okay, makes the police institution itself, you know, makes their work very difficult because they end up being cowed by that attitude itself, all right? Because the scenarios that have been mentioned here, this Awuni issue and what Kweku also raised. You see, Awuni, yes, was doing his job, okay, or he was doing his job, or the minister was obstructing his work. So he has to show the minister yes, okay, and he did that. Okay, for me, that is how I see it as a politician. But how does those we call the floating voters, people who don't belong here or there, how do they see such a situation? Because yes, you can say I am biased because I belong to a particular political party at any given time. That's why I gave the two scenarios, one from the NDC, one from the NPP. What was the NPP's reaction to Ashite's arrest? And what is the NDC's reaction on Eshla's assault? You see, so each one will go to where they belong. That is what has caused the police to really make their work very difficult. So it's going to take a while. The police themselves also will have to be up and doing. My big brother, the minister, is here. He superintends over whatever the police is expected to do. But from his perspective, you also could see that inwardly there is some disconnect, okay? And when he is a politician, and certainly he's not there to do politics, all right? But at the same time, you cannot cut yourself from where you really belong when you realize certain things are being done to spite you. So please, for now, I don't see any, it's going to be around with us for a very long time, and we just have to come to terms with it. At the same time, the police as a professional institution should also come forth well, not in a manner that Awuni did it, because he's given two examples. I mean, okay.
Mr. Awuni is not here to independently
agree
himself.
Right, but
he's the first person
with
to
the scenario
the
of the mayor situation, we even see individuals, people who are not mandated, boys on the street sometimes. Yes, and we allow them. Nobody stops them because sometimes they even help to create sanity at that point. So why will you attack somebody who is seen as, or who is not seen as, who is a leader, as we all know? He has jurisdiction over the area where this whole thing happened. That is what we are talking about. So the police, yes, they are also, I personally think, there are politicians within the police service. Not only the police, but other services. Politicians, die in the wool politicians there. And sometimes their work, or whatever is seen of their work, speaks so much volume on where they belong and how they react on issues. So it's going to be around for a while, but we still have to come to terms with it and move on.
Kobe, quick question. You are a politician in addition to being a minister. You support your party's call to more or less do away with Ms. Awuni from the Greater Accra region, as has been put out by the regional chairman?
Not necessarily supporting the call. I think Awuni needs to come back to the ground and begin to act professionally. That's what I would say. He has to. I mean, the mayor's stance, there was no need for him to even jump on air.
He argues, and because he's not here, I'm tempted to argue for him. He argues that, he doesn't necessarily do his work based on whatever political considerations. He doesn't really care about whoever is a politician today and whoever is minister tomorrow. No. And that the parties have come over the years to meet him, then he would discharge his duties without fear or favor.
Kojo, he has every right to discharge his duties without fear or favor. But in discharging your duties without fear or favor, you always look at the context in which you discharge your duties. What was his business insulting the former regional minister? Verbally abusive.
He says he lost his temper after
Yes,
the regional
but that
minister
is where you act unprofessionally when you lose your temper.
Had told him he was going to get him sacked.
Yes, so if he had said he was going to get you, had he touched you with his hand or anything? That was a verbal thing he said. And getting you sacked, he said he was going to get you sacked. Had he sacked you? Or was he the right authority to sack you? You should continue to act as a professional. You didn't have any business to insult him.
It's interesting listening to Kobe. He thinks that that was just a verbal attack on the minister, on the police officer, which did not require that kind of, if you like, reciprocal verbal attack on the former minister. But he feels there's something wrong with what Esler did. I don't understand that. He says that when the AMA boss got out of his car to direct traffic, it was exceptional circumstances. But he feels it was wrong that when Kwesi Ofori thought there were exceptional circumstances that he needed to confront and apprehend a particular alleged criminal who was disrupting this very temporary exercise. That was also an exceptional exercise, but there's something wrong with that. I think it's important that we are consistent. And listening to the president, it appears he's oblivious of his number one duty, security. He is the number one law enforcement officer of this land. Security. No, let me, I'm trying to be philosophical, so please.
There's no philosophy in what you're saying.
No,
seriously.
no.
There's no philosophy.
No, the first duty of a head of
philosophy.
state, well, that's your opinion. You're entitled to it.
Yes, there's no philosophy in what you're saying.
You've said that and you've repeated it. We heard you. The number one duty of a head of state is security. It is not rhetorical security. It's not you going to Senegal, you're going to Obama, you're going to New York, and saying that under your presidency, no blood will be spilled. Perhaps we should ask a question. Let's ask a question. Neil Ante van der Poel, he's the director of operations at the castle. I don't know what that title entails, but we also do know that he's chairman of what? Weightlifters Association in Ghana. So you are looking at it that potentially he has the greatest access to macho men in this country. No. I said potentially.
That's a bit unfair, guys.
Potentially.
That's a bit unfair.
No, there's nothing.
That's a bit unfair, but you proceed.
No.
That's why I told you there's no philosophy in what you're saying.
It's unfair, but you proceed.
I'm coming. No, I'm just saying.
You're finally proving that there's no philosophy in it after all.
It's unfair, but you proceed with your
I'm coming. There's a point in what I'm saying. He is the director of operations at the castle, okay? He is the chairman of what? That's Weightlifters Association in Ghana. My biceps are particularly bigger than his, but I'm not too sure what makes him qualify for that. But anyway, that's a different matter, okay? And it is within his constituency that this is happening.
So your point is?
Okay? And you have the president. So this is the right-hand man of the very president who is preaching peace. And then you have violence, as Kobe said, it was just a verbal, if you like, because even what Esler did, for a minister of Interior to sit here and say, Esler had no business, because the law says Esler had business going to urge Ghanaians to vote, to go and register. So if you have a deputy minister, no, please, you see, if you have a deputy minister saying that Esler had no business going into an adjoining constituency, but when you see what is happening within, I don't know about the NDC, but within the MPP, what they do is that they help each other. The parliamentary candidates, they support each other with resources and the rest of it. So if you have a deputy minister of Interior in charge of law and order saying that Esler had no business, forget about the MP. The MP saying she left her jurisdiction to go to another territory. Let's take that to be maybe some pedantic mistake. That's fine.
It's not a mistake.
Well, there's nothing like territory. There's nothing like jurisdiction. There's nothing like.
You understood exactly what he was saying.
But I'm just saying. So that
you understood what he was saying.
So that is the point I'm saying.
Let's
push that.
So you guys lack contextual intelligence.
Please,
this is improper.
No. But I said,
No.
You don't understand what he said. You understood what he was saying.
I said let's push that.
You just want to carry on for carrying sake.
Hold on. Gabby, make your point.
Words are important. So when you have the minister saying, I'm not personalizing, but I'm saying the minister. That's why
I don't care about your personalization.
When you have a minister saying that Esler had no business going to another constituency to urge potential voters to go and register, it's a bad signal we are sending out there. When the president says that we should not provoke, is he saying that telling Ghanaians that, look, the ordinary residents in an area means this. So please go out there and register. Is that provocation? Esther's constituency, they are guards. It's an Accra constituency.
Why didn't you spend the time there?
It's not your business.
What do you mean it's not our business?
She decides what she wants to do.
No, that's the body politic thing we are doing in this country. That's not helping us grow.
No. But what is it fundamentally wrong?
Is it fundamentally wrong?
Fundamentally
Next
wrong?
time, tell her to come into the NDC headquarters and tell them how to go and vote.
But
tell her to go into the NDC headquarters and do that. You know these things are real. You don't get around them. Tell her to go in there.
Hold on. Gabby, please, just a moment.
Please go ahead.
Just a moment.
Please go ahead.
Kobe, are you suggesting, seriously, that there's something legally wrong with you, let's say, going into the Fantiakwa constituency? Let me finish my question. Hold on.
Go ahead.
You going into the Fantiakwa constituency to encourage people to go register. Is there something wrong? I thought that was the job of the NCC. I thought we're all complaining that the NCC hasn't been doing that, and maybe we all should be helping to encourage that.
Kojo, there's something called book sense, and there's something called common sense. They are two distinct things. You can have all the knowledge from a book, you can rattle it, but there's something called common sense. Do you understand the phrase, being at the wrong place at the wrong time?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Why would you go into an area and go and do something when you know you are not the person who is supposed... Where was the NPP parliamentary candidate?
And so you're saying that there was something wrong with that?
I don't find nothing wrong with it, but you don't do it in certain circumstances.
Okay. I think your point is made. Let me come back to Gabby to finish your submission. Your point is made. Gabby, finish your submission.
I really don't have anything to add.
Okay. We are 15 minutes after 10. Kweku is going to have his say. I just want to mention, again, because Mr. Awuni is not here to speak for himself, that, and he told me during his interview that even though he concedes he overstepped his bounds, he ended up apologizing because he thought that he had gone beyond his bounds. Kweku, I'll give you the final say on this particular subject before we go for a break and move to some of our other subjects.
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting. Now, and I may be wrong, but I'm beginning to suspect that there's been a long-standing, you know, problem with that winning within the NDC circles. Because a character profile of the gentleman is now being drawn up to virtually rationalize the call for his removal as a Greater Accra, whatever what he's doing.
MTTU boss.
Yeah, it's interesting. Not just one instance matter. We are now being given all sorts of examples about his character. And so I think there's a problem already.
But this is character that other persons say is professional. Other persons say it is right, irrespective of who is in office.
Yes, but now we have people in government who are, you know, aggregating all these things and telling us that this is enough to show that this man is not a professional policeman. And that's why I'm saying that perhaps this whole thing against Awuni goes beyond the incident we are discussing today, you know. But, you know, today's graphic, I've seen something here. Is it Neil Vanderpoel and Victor Kaikwe? The police held a meeting.
We're told they are talking peace.
They are asking, they're deciding to go on a peace march. Is that not it? It's a good one, and it ought to be projected, you know. You know? No. Kobe, you are getting me wrong.
We could proceed with your submissions.
You know? So, I would advise the police, maybe they should heighten their intelligence, police intelligence, relative to the potential trouble spots and deal with it. But you see, the interesting thing about this is that the issues creating the problems, the question of being resident or ordinary resident came up. I'm told the idea now is that let everybody register and pursue the legal means. That ought to be, those who have a problem with that, the options are clear. The EC is being asked to interpret it. If you even disagree with the EC's interpretation, the option of the courts are there. Is this not a civilized option? So if people had not assumed their responsibility of determining who was ordinary resident in a particular constituency, you think we'll have these problems? There are some of these people who are being prevented from registering, who I'm told had been voting in that constituency since '92. So somebody assuming a responsibility that he is not entitled to in terms of law is at the core of this violent situation at Odododio. Let's be fair with ourselves. It may be replicated elsewhere. That also, now, Kojo, I will end by saying this. I didn't hear Awuni Kusifori saying that there's a policy to shoot on sight. I heard him trying to bring up that police standing operating order. You may educate me in what it says. That reasonable force, there's a rules of engagement, provide the policeman with authority to apply reasonable force dependent on the circumstances of the situation. That is, indeed, it is more of the reaction from the target, what he does to the policeman. As for the holding the policeman's shirt, the policeman can still exercise discretion and just arrest you. But if you have weapons, not necessarily guns, and you are rampaging through a constituency, driving people away, I'm told the computer, the machine, they removed the chip, disabled the chip. It's a huge crime. And people run helter-skelter. And if the policemen turn up, and you have this mob of mobsters sitting on motorbikes, on licensed motorbikes, and causing chaos, how is the police going to deal with the situation? So he didn't say shoot to kill. He hadn't declared a policy of shoot to kill. And I think that Kobe would have been the first person to know the exact details of what the divisional commander said or did not say on radio, and not to speculate. That again tells me
exact details, and I've told you the exact details.
that he said shoot to kill. I heard the interview.
Okay.
And he didn't say that because we are talking
have a
here
report.
of the
I have a
interview.
report.
We are not talking of a report. The report is based on the interview that he granted the station.
You see,
Yeah.
you are talking as if the report
Quickly,
that
we have
comes
to
to my
wrap this up,
attention
gentlemen.
is what is based on a radio
No, but
interview. What is based on radio interviews.
No. In two levels. We are talking
Daily
the
Guide.
Bounty.
Yes.
The
I use
Bounty.
that because it's a public forum.
But I'm not sure where Daily Guy got its report from. I heard
Today you doubt
Ku-
Daily
Kusi-
Guide.
No, we didn't say that.
No, I
Gentlemen,
haven't said
hold
that. I
on.
think
Let's-
this kind of interpretation,
let Kweku make
which
his
you are too
submissions.
good for,
Kweku,
ought
make
not
your
to be put
submissions.
here.
No,
You are
make
not
your
good for that.
submissions.
Today
You
you
know
doubt
that's not
Daily
what
Guide.
I said.
Kobe, hold it.
Today
Kobe,
you
make
doubt
your
Daily
submissions.
Guide.
You
Kobe,
know
hold it.
that's
Kobe, make
not
your
what I
submissions.
said. Okay, please. I think we are above that. That's not what I said.
Well.
I have not doubted the credibility of Daily Guide as a newspaper. I have not done that. And it ought not to be, the impression ought not to be created that I have done that. We're too good for that. The point I am making is that if we are asking for precision, exactitude, honesty in these matters, let's come out with the real facts. Kwesi Fori did not declare a shoot on sight policy. If you said that he did put a bounty on somebody and he didn't have the authority, fair deal. I am saying the cure for that mischief was not properly done.
Okay.
That's the point I'm making.
We're 21 minutes after 10 a.m. this Saturday morning. I want to read some of your text messages. At the end of our discussion, we'll move to our next topic. Jack Morrow says, good morning, Kojo. I strongly believe that the two main political parties adopted the strategy of minimizing the number of registered voters in the strongholds of their opponents. It is also true that considering the few issues in Accra and elsewhere, the process can be described as fairly successful so far. There's also the belief that almost all those prospective voters that are having their registration pending will finally be registered, hence the intimidation. Mutaru Disberg in Germany sent us an email. It says, I was very disappointed in the call by Adekoka for ACP Awuni to be transferred. Those who have followed the conduct of the police service over the years will agree that ACP Awuni has been one of the best performing officers and has been acknowledged on several occasions as such. Besides, ACP Awuni is not a regional commander in the Greater Accra region. He's a national commander. And so you cannot say you in the Greater Accra region cannot work with him. JIT says, I think that Mr. Eduasari deserves the kind of treatment that his own party has subjected him to so far. The man will simply not admit simple wrongs and speak the truth. White Edmond Bradley puts a comment, I'm sure, on our Facebook, where it says, I, for one, am finding it very hard to understand why a simple exercise such as registration of voters is turning out to be this chaotic. Why does it always involve the NDC and the NPP? Some of us are just tired of the needless violence. Amakisiedu says, instead of President Mills condemning what Neil Ante is doing, he will just make a general statement about violence, and that's it. Asamoah William from Ashale Butcher says some of these registration problems are here with us as a result of the all die be die statement made by Nanado. Raybon Anyadi in the Volta region sends us a comment, says, is the president not the commander-in-chief of the armed forces? What did the president mean? His outfit cannot enforce law and order. Shaibu Ishao says, why is it that politicians of our time want to assume power by all means? They should remember that posterity will judge them with their selfish parochial interest. And the final batch of your comments. Eslo Usu should not expect us to clap for her when she goes around insulting people who do not support or die. This one says, Esla has taken over the duty and responsibility of the NCCE and the Electoral Commission. Otu from Kwando says, this is a fallout from the all die syndrome. Let's watch out for more such incidents ahead. Sarkodie and Kumasi says, political power is not a zero-sum game. Therefore, the president must hold his people accountable for their actions. This one doesn't bear a name. It says, in my polling station, it's the party agents that indicate who resides in the area or not, and it has been peaceful so far. I will urge all other polling stations to do the same. And Derek from Ahafo, Kenya says, from the fruit of his lips, a man enjoys good things, but the unfaithful craves for violence. If Nanado does not apologize for the all die be die statement, and you go on to make a few comments that I would not be reading, but I think the crux of your message has been shared. Bottom line, the security agencies need to be firm and professional in their work. The political actors also need to be measured in their comments and in their actions. That's the feedback I'm getting from around the table here. We're 25 minutes after 10. I'll go for a break. When I return, we will start off our second conversation about the NDC's Green Book. And here are a few questions I want you to ponder and perhaps share your thoughts with us on that subject even before we go for that break. Does the MPP's record in the first 3 years compare to what the NDC is claiming in its first 3 years? How true is a claim that a good number of the suggestions or the attributes that have been touted in that book are misleading? And how much impact have these achievements made in your life or in your pocket? We'll get answers from my guests and hopefully from you as well when we return. Newsfile is brought to you in association with MTN Everywhere You Go, Deftraco Limited, Hisense, and TTB. Send us your thoughts by text 1422 across networks or 1760 across networks or by email newsfile@myjoyonline.com. Welcome back to Newsfile. I just want to wrap up with a few text messages and comments, and then we'll move to our second conversation. Aisi says, Esla did not violate any law. How do you expect other women to take part in the political process when this is the fate of women in politics? Ajay Frimpong says, if the Minister for Interior, his Deputy Interior Minister, who is to protect us, justifies the attack on Esla, then this is unfortunate. I don't think we'll be safe under this weak president who apparently has left the governance of this country in the hands of some other persons. Umar Ukasha from Tamale says, the NDC is trying to employ all kinds of intimidation and tactics to win this election. And Adele says, I need to clarify an issue. Does the law of the land justify us to beat people when they are saying things that make us angry? The police should be independent. 1422 across networks, 1760 across networks. Or you can send us an email, newsfile@myjoyonline.com. Let me just tell you the TTB fact file details. Fact number 1, a savings account is usually open for the purpose of keeping one's money safe, secure, and accessible at future dates. Fact number 2, the value of money in a savings account should always be preserved over time. Fact number 3, if you spend less than you earn on a regular basis, you should always be left with extra money for savings. Our verdict, to be prudent, you should always look beyond these basic facts of savings to find that singular savings account which gives you more than security and value preservation. Our solution, the TTB Savings Plus account and the TTB Kiddie Plus account, each guarantee you secure savings, low interest, and free personal accident cover. Call 0302 252 760. TTB, that's a member of the EcoBank Group. And they are the best electrical products on the Ghanaian market today, efficient, durable, and affordable. Their wide range of products include LCD and LED TVs, air conditioners, chest freezers, refrigerators of different sizes and colors, washing machines, microwave ovens, toasters, sandwich makers, and many others. You should go take advantage of the offer this season and get yourself a Hisense digital TV with 5-year warranty. Visit their showroom today in East Legon, Bewa Junction, adjacent Ghana Link, or call them on 0302 543 303. Hisense, innovation for life. And you can watch your dreams come true in the MTN Dream Big promotion. You can win 10,000 Ghana cedis cash every day for the next 100 days, or you can win 2 brand new Hyundai iX35 cars from Hyundai Motors at the end of the first and second months, or win a lovely 3-bedroom estate house from UT Properties as the final grand prize at the end of the 3rd month. Text WIN, W-I-N, to short code 2020. Terms and conditions apply. It's everywhere you go. So the NDC has put together, the government's communication team has put together what they call the overview of the Better Ghana agenda. It's an 87-page document that extols the achievements of the Mills administration in the first 3 years. About 3 main questions fall out for our discussion. Number one, does the MPP's record in the first 3 years compare to some of the things that the NDC administration claims it's done in these first 3 years? Number two, how true is the suggestion that some of the things they are talking about are really misleading? They are not things that were actually in full essence achieved during their tenure. They were built by others. They just came to commission them and now are claiming credit for them. Number three, how much impact, and that's why I want to hear from you, how much impact are these achievements making in your life or in your pocket? Send us your thoughts by text or by email. Mr. Dasari, let me start with you.
Okay. Thanks, Kojo. The Green Book, it was launched last, was it on Thursday? And before the launching, I think it was copies were put on the internet for people to at least appraise themselves with. So even before the launching, people had the feel of what the book contains. And so far, I've also been monitoring radio comments and debates, especially from people of the NPP or opposition parties, let me put it generally. And I have not heard any attempt by especially the NPP to try and match whatever they did in their 8 years. Okay, like even talk about it or enumerate some of the achievements. So that, yes, NDC is claiming that in 3 years we've achieved so much. And for that matter, let's just oppose that with what the NPP did in their 8 years in power. Because that's the challenge. That's the challenge. We are saying as a party that, yes, we, in our manifesto, the 2008 manifesto, we had 4 thematic areas that we thought we could focus on. And several attempts have been made, but by the NPP communications team, led by Honorable Nana Akumia, telling Ghanaians that, oh, this government has taken so much, you know, in terms of loans and grants and all manner of money from, you know, and nothing is there to show for it. And this message keeps going. I have been on platforms with him where, you know, there is nothing to show for it. So we have come with a document, this time not verbal. This is readable, black and white. Read it, and then we've also put them in picture, a lot of projects in pictures. And then when you finish, all we want to tell Ghanaians is that, yes, you gave us a mandate. And within that stewardship, we have borrowed money. This is what your money went to do. So when the NPP comes, or people of the NPP come and say that we have, you know, misused money, or we have not done anything with whatever loans that we took, this is there to prove what we've done. And for me, I think this is just a flash in a pan, as has already been said. This is, in my constituency alone, I'm sure the projects we've undertaken, if we want to put it in a book form, we may get more than 87 pages. And I think the same thing applies to other districts. So yes, this is like a balance sheet of a sort. Here we are. We are telling Ghanaians that, yes, not only with our mouths, because yes, we say things and in about 2-3 days, people forget. Now we've put them down in a written form. Read it, appraise yourself with our stewardship in the last 3.5 years. Compare it. Because yes, this is election year. President Mills is going for re-elections. This time he's not riding on anybody's back. He's going as a candidate, and he has his record to prove what his first term provided for Ghanaians, and this is it. So we talked about the 4 thematic areas: strong economy for real jobs, investing in people, expanding infrastructure for growth, and also transparent and accountable governance. These have been broken. These 4 areas, whatever we've achieved in these areas, we've highlighted them in this book. Apart from that, we've also talked about some aspects of our achievements, the very issues that are unprecedented in this country. We've also highlighted them in the book. So sometimes when I hear, I just hope that, as we said, we are going to digest, okay, especially in the area of agric, what we've done, in the area of health. This time we don't want to do the, we put the pictures right there, what we are doing from the Tamale Hospital, from district hospitals we've built, shape compounds, and all of that have all been put down in this book. When you go to the agric sector, the youth in the agric project, the number of combined harvesters that we came and met, only 2 combined. I'm a member of the agric committee in Parliament, and when we toured this country, only 2 combined harvesters we had. We have now over 70 combined harvesters. So these are achievements that we think Ghanaians should know, and what their money that people claim did not do anything is here to prove. And if we want to, we can't even do 10 pages on this program.
There's a lot more to be said for what your government has done. Quick question.
Yes.
Some of your critics say what is missing here is also a comparison with the resource available to your administration. That this is what we met, this is how much resource that we have borrowed or we have generated, and this is what we've used it for. So that others can also do a comparison that, okay, so should somebody else have had this resource basket, could he have done more?
Well, you may, whoever wants to ask that question may be right in a sense. But you see, it is NDC that is in power. Okay, for that matter, what we think is necessary for the Ghanaian people, things those were the areas, the 4 thematic areas that we wanted to concentrate on. So maybe the next manifesto that will come out will take on some other areas, okay, which may address whatever they may expect from here. So they should just hold on. We are in April. I'm sure some document will come out subsequently before the elections.
Gabby, yeah, go ahead.
And when that time comes, we will spell out whatever plans and programs that we have for our second term. But in the meantime, we are saying that, yes, the NPP in their 8 years of power, or first 3 years, if we want to even go that far, I mean, they are no match in their first term. But we are taking them on as a challenge that in 8 years versus our 4 years, that is the challenge. So they should prove to us with documents, facts, and figures. Then we can compare whether they deserve to be given the opportunity to run the administration in the next, what do you call it, after President Mills' term or not. But we think that with all that we have in this book and subsequent books that will be published, Ghanaians will look on this and give Professor Mills another term.
Gary, can the MPP's record compare to what the NDC claims it's done in these first 3 years?
I think, first of all, it would not be fair on either the MPP or the NDC, because what Kufuor inherited in 2001 cannot be compared to what the NDC inherited in 1993 or the NDC inherited in 2009. You know, so a straight comparison like that may not be fair. But having said that, I mean, you can still pick a couple of indicators in terms of investment in education, in terms of how much salary shot up. I heard the Vice President is also in the Green Book. I'll give you just a couple of statistics. The government says that, look, when it came into office, this is the NDC, in 2009, the wage bill was 2 billion. And now it's a little over 5 billion, more than doubled. So it's a serious, unprecedented achievement. Let's start perhaps in defining what unprecedented means, and then we can begin to understand it. It says, without previous instance, never before known or experienced, unexampled or unparalleled. There's no precedent. It never happened before. Now, the 2 billion to 5 billion, okay, it translates into a little over 100%, you know, maybe about 150, 115% increase over the 4 years. I say 4 years because the salaries are the salaries for 2012, the 5 billion. Okay, so it's the 4 years we are talking about, not 3 years. But when you go back and you go under Kufuor's tenure, for the 8 years, he increased salaries from the wage bill from 200 million Ghana cedis to 2 billion in 8 years. That averages 100 and what? 50% or over a year. That is what they have achieved in 4 years. Okay? And even then, Kufuor was not implementing the single spine. Kufuor did not have oil resources. But every year, he managed to increase salaries by over 150%, 1.5 times. But we've seen it be decreased over just a little over doubled within 4 years. Okay, so if you want to look at it that way. Within 4 years, I mean, the Kufuor, in terms of Kufuor managed to have inflation. Okay, this government has done well, going by the figures. It has more than half inflation, from 18%. It shot up in March a little bit, but it's still under 9%. You know, so you are talking about even the 4 years. Kufuor did that within the 4 years as well. Kufuor managed depreciation. He managed to hold. Please don't shake your head. I'm dealing with figures.
Yeah, has anybody said anything to you?
No, I'm just saying.
Just like Esla can go into the radio, I can sit here and shake my head.
No.
Gabby, I can sit here and shake my head. Go ahead. You just go ahead and allow me to shake my head.
No, please do.
No, yes.
Gabby, go ahead.
And allow me to comment. Allow me to comment on you shaking your head. Let me continue.
Go ahead with your submissions.
The CD depreciated by under 25% in Kufuor's 4 years. Over the 8-year period, it depreciated by under 58%. Over this 3-year period, 3.5-year period, it depreciated about 77%. The CD has depreciated, okay? But, you know, it is not necessarily a direct comparison of the figures that matters. It is what you have done with the power that's been given to you and the resources that have come your way. Was it Vice Running Mate John Mahama who said, to whom much is given? What was the rest? Much is expected. Absolutely. Now let's look at the figures. President J.E.A. Mills has been the most fortunate, luckiest president that this republic has seen since the First Republic.
That's a good comment.
Okay?
It's a good compliment, isn't it? Lucky.
But you see, the issue is, and you know, he's been lucky by no effort of his own. And I will explain that to you. I'll give you the indicators and you see what I mean. But the important thing is what you do with the blessings that have come the way of the nation. To me, that's the issue. If you look at it, not just in nominal terms, I can show you some figures. In nominal terms, in 8 years, the revenues that Kufuor got, okay, and the total expenditure that Kufuor made, according to the budgets, I'm looking at the budgets, okay, nominal terms, Mills has had more resources than Kufuor in 4 years, as compared to 8 years. 31
Is that not
billion.
indicative of his better governance?
I am coming. I will show you exactly what I mean. Talking about 31 billion to 35 billion, okay? In 4 years, Mills has borrowed more, nominally, than all the other governments put together since the First Republic. The 12 billion.
Did anybody tell them not to borrow?
Oh, I'm coming.
I'll
get there.
Did anybody tell them not to borrow?
I'll come to you.
I will get there. So when you look at both nominal and real terms, in terms of the resources that have come the way of Mills, when Kufuor left office, our debt, external debt was 4 billion, domestic debt 4.2 billion. Just yesterday, MPC, Monetary Policy Committee of Bank of Ghana, told us that the domestic debt alone has shot up to 12 billion. That's 200% increase in just 3.5 years. Okay? So you look at the fact that in not just nominal, in real terms, more resources have come into the hands of this Mills Mahama administration than the 4 years under Kufuor. Then you ask yourselves, what have they done with the resources? And now, in terms of taking credit for the resources, let's also interrogate the figures. Some of the things they've mentioned is that we've experienced the highest growth rate. And I
now told it was about 14 point something last year.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm saying it is of no particular specific initiative of the government that has led to this. Because when you look at the government's own targets that they set for themselves, we can look at the targets. Agriculture, the target was 5.3%. By the figures, they achieved 2.8%. Forestry and logging, target 4.8%. By the figures, they achieved what? Minus 14%. Fishing, target 5% growth. By the figures, they achieved 1.7%. Manufacturing, 7% growth. By the figures, 1.7%. Electricity, 18%, 13.7% achieved. Water and sewage, 5%, 1.9% achieved. Services, target 9.9%, 4.2% achieved. Trade, repair of vehicles, household goods, 11% target, 2% achieved. Hotel and restaurants, 13.5% target, minus 11% achieved. When you look at all this, financial intermediation, 17% target, growth target, 1% achieved. Business and other service activities, 10% growth target, minus 1% achieved. Education, 9%, 3.8% achieved. These were their targets that they set for themselves. All those targets, they missed. Okay? And by huge margins. And the huge margins have implications in terms of creation of jobs, in terms of incomes and the rest of it. Okay? So when you look at this, and then you get to understand that half of what informed the record growth rate last year was attributed to what? The oil that was discovered by the president who was before Mills. Okay?
The search for which perhaps started many years before he even came to power.
I'm coming. I'm just saying that the blessings and the resources have been available. The important thing is what you do with them. When you look at that, and then you also, one of the major claims in this book is that President Mills has been able to go and access $3 billion. It's never happened before, so it's unprecedented. I'm not going to argue with that. 3 billion, even 1.5 billion STAs was unprecedented. You know, and the way it collapsed to perhaps was unprecedented. But
why 1 billion Chinese Baba Saloon was unprecedented?
Well, I didn't see I didn't see Mills, President Kufuor commissioning any project.
Whatever it was,
I didn't see President Kufuor. President Kufuor got a shovel.
Baba Saloon was unprecedented.
Well, I didn't see Kufuor catching his hair.
So Gabi, for you, the resources available.
It's not just for me, my brother. Look, I'm saying that this government has been able to borrow $12 billion, okay? And it's been able to borrow that because it's been able to leverage the oil that was discovered before this president came into office. It's as simple as that. The $3 billion was not because the Chinese think all of a sudden there's some confidence in the economy, minus the oil. Because every single penny, peswa, cent, or whatever that comes to us from the $3 billion is linked directly to what? To the oil. Crude oil that they can lift, which is going into an escrow account, which goes to China. So
does the crude oil belong to Togo?
Maybe Burkina Faso.
Yeah. So what are you talking about?
So the point is, you have been given this tremendous opportunity to have an unprecedented impact on the lives of Ghanaians, and you tell us you've created 1.7 million jobs. America, they have this recovery. Obama stimulus package was about almost $800 billion. Okay? They created 2 million jobs. America, population of about 300 million over the first year. Okay? Stimulus package of $800 billion. President Mills, in his first year, said what? There's deficit. Okay? They were not paying contractors. They even put a freeze on employment within the public sector because what? This arrangement they had with the IMF. But we're told 12 months later that they created 1.6 million jobs. And today, we are being told, 3.5 years down the line, that they've created an additional, what, 100,000 jobs. So 50,000 jobs for 2010, 50,000 jobs for the action year, the year that we were told there was going to be STS, there's going to be university of this, blah, 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 and all these projects. None of those projects that were the flagship projects for the action year were achieved. Yet, this government has made or chalked unprecedented.
What's your own story?
I don't have, it's not my story. I'm not in government.
What is your
Forget
story?
about you are in office. You are, it's no, the most important, MPP is in what? MPP is in opposition. And when you look into this book, my brother, I don't even want to go into the details of this book, because at the end of the day, I heard Kofi Juma saying on there this morning that if really it's about building schools, then every DC should become president. You know, because look, every government will build schools. But what worried me is the NDC has warned Ghanaians over the next 4 years. Because what? Vice President John Mahama, when he launched this book, told Ghanaians that for the next 4 years, they are going to put up 200 secondary schools in communities across the country at the cost of $250 million. Kojo, you know what that means? It means 250 million is the graphic and everywhere. You know what it means, Kojo? It means they'll be building a secondary school at $1.25 million. That means 2.2 million Ghana cedis per secondary school. So you know what? And that actually, to me, epitomizes what has been happening to the resources. Because you have inflated cost of contracts, so more money is chasing fewer achievements. And that is the difficult.
To wrap up your submissions. Are you suggesting that if we look at the quantum of resources that the Mills administration has had,
yes,
an MPP administration could have done better with these resources?
I don't want to even
is
say
there
that.
Any,
to
is
me,
there, for instance, any intellectual analysis of resource and achievement from the MPP time which can be used to make that argument that looking at that conversion ratio, with this resource, we would have been able to do better?
Brother, I told you, for instance, Kufuor managed without oil, okay? Kufuor managed to increase salaries by over 150% consistently every year, okay? Kufuor managed to increase in terms of funding in education more than, on an average, more than this government has been able to do, okay? So when you look at all that, and you look at, because no government had oil, and what the oil has done is given President Mills to look into loans for, as the panacea for every single problem facing this country,
Kobe,
without actually being necessarily innovative.
Kobe, let me get a response
It's all
from
about
you.
loans.
Let me get a response from you, Kobe.
And what has he done with them?
Kobe,
Yeah.
let me get a response from you.
You know, I'm not able to speak for the simple reason that he's really accentuated what I've kept saying, a lack of contextual intelligence. They lack it. They don't have it. Let me first explain some of the things that he said that simply do not wash. That we've had more resources. Every government since independence puts out what is called a budget statement. That tells this country that this is the amount of money I'm going to generate as revenues, and this is how I am going to spend it. This country allows us to pass that into law, governing how we do these things. So every government since independence has had a budget statement put out that tells you my resources and how I'm going to spend it. So that argument that we've had more resources doesn't wash because, one, we put it out. It's there. The quantities are there. The budget statement is there. It tells you sector by sector. We will spend A on this, B on this, total amount realized, total amount to be spent is there. So one of the contextual or intelligence things that they are doing is lumping that you've had more money during your period. Two, we run a constitutional democracy. Every government has a period of 4 years to achieve or do things within that period. After 4 years, you go for another election. So you sitting here and said, you over the period, as if we just took over power from nowhere and said we are doing all this. We went to the people with a mandate. We went to the people, asked them for a mandate, gave them a specific message. And we are going according to what we say we are doing. And we are achieving them. Now, could you, let me give you an
Government today is because of the basket of resources you have. That basket of resources, you did not necessarily do anything of your own to acquire. It was handed over to you because of the oil collateral that we have today? I want you to give me a direct response.
It was handed over by who?
By the country, of course.
Yes, but what do we go as a process in our constitutional democracy? What do we do? Do we tell ourselves that a country, when you come into power, you stay for 8 years and go away, or you have 4 years to tell us what you've done, or go with a message, people give you the mandate, and then you continue? It's a moot point.
No,
it is no. It is a moot point.
Hold on.
It is a moot point.
Hold on.
It is a moot point because we are running a constitutional democracy.
I understand.
That argument that you were handed over by who?
The emphasis is not on a handing over. The emphasis is that your ability to achieve the things in this Green Book, for instance, is based on a certain amount in the bank account.
A certain amount in the bank account. How did that come about?
May I? That amount came about as a result of the oil collateral we have today, and so you're able to...
The oil, who does it belong to?
May I just finish the question?
No, because what the question you're asking for me doesn't wash. It's not a question that should be asked.
Hold on.
It's not a question that should be asked.
Hold on.
What is the essence of that question?
Hold on. We all sit around the table with due respect to one another and to our viewers and listeners out there. I ask the questions, you answer. Let me ask the questions, you can answer.
It's not a question that you should ask in the first place.
That's
what I would insist. It's not a question.
Fine.
Because the resources do not belong to another country. If you tell me that you were handed over resources, what does that mean?
Let me do my job. You can decline to answer the question. The argument being made is that you have a basket of resources that is available because somebody found oil and left it behind, and that looking at that person's looking at that person's conversion rate of the resource available and what they achieved, maybe you could have done a lot more with that one.
Kojo, I want to ask you a question. Who found the oil and left it behind?
You have an answer to my question?
No. I'm asking you a question. Who found the oil and left it behind?
You want to proceed with the submissions? Because I'm not going to answer your question.
Of course, you cannot answer that question.
Because I'm not answering
questions. That is why I told
you
from the beginning that your question is moot. It shouldn't be asked.
You go ahead with
this. This is a country, for heaven's sake. You are engaging in the kind of body politic that I'm talking. Things that do not matter, that's what we talk about. How can you tell me that you were left or you came by certain resources? The resources, who do they belong to? Is it for Togo? Is it for Burkina Faso? Isn't it for the country called Ghana? And when we go through a 4-year election cycle and a new government comes, doesn't that government take care of whatever is available? So what is the essence of that question? As if when a new government comes, you have to say, oh, this person left it for me, so what? It is for the country. You are supposed to govern what is available. Isn't that the premise for everything we do? So what is the basis of that question? That's why I kept telling you that it's a moot question. You don't ask that question. It is a moot question. If the NDC government leaves office today, every loan that we have acquired, including the 3 billion loan, is bequeathed to the next government. Are you going to tell them that you came by this so that? It is for the country called Ghana. That is it. Bottom line. Let's get some of these things and let's take ourselves from this basic pettiness. It is petty. You cannot go, if Obama leaves office, the Republicans are not going to ask him, what did you leave us? They're not going to ask him that. They take over from where he left off.
And so you think that the question of
Please, let me finish. Don't interrupt my train thought. Don't interrupt it. Let me continue.
I don't want to get on a one-on-one with you.
No, but I gave you all the chance to ask your question. So give me the chance to answer.
Kobe, you and I do this thing in a very nice way. My job allows me to, redirect occasionally. I'm trying to understand you. What you're saying is that the question of resource to achievement doesn't matter in this case.
It's not a question of, it doesn't really matter. Does it really matter?
Okay.
It doesn't really matter.
That's your view.
It is how you govern, how you manage the resources, how you achieve results. That is what is of interest to Ghanaians. And in any case, you are talking about oil. If you talk about oil, who started oil exploration in this country? Did it come only under the MPP? Every government since independence, Kwame Nkrumah's government, started oil exploration in this country. So no one person can claim credit that I found oil. If it happened under your watch, yes, it happened under your watch, but you didn't find oil because somebody started it. It is a continuity. Somebody started it. So that argument, you see, let's get beyond these pettiness. Let's get beyond. There are oil exploration going on in the Volta Basin. If, assuming the next government takes over and that thing is done, would they claim credit that, oh, it came under your watch?
The issue is what you do with it.
Yes, but that's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's not
good. That is what we are telling you.
Let him make his submission. Gabby, let him make his submission.
I hold in my hand this book. Yeah. Let me read the foreword to you. It's from Daniel Bochi. He was the Minister of Information at that time.
And this is what the 2012 election is going to be for.
Well, now you are worried about...
I'm asking you. I mean, seriously.
Let him make his submission.
I'll skip a whole lot. I don't want to bore readers. But he said the book entitled 4 Years of So Far So Good is a pictorial record of only some, not all of what this government under HE President Kufuor has achieved in the first 4-year mandate that people of this country gave him. Only some. Go to page 38. You are talking about achievement. Go to page 38 in this book.
Aren't you going to talk about your positive
achievements? Go to page 38 in this book, Gabby. Go to page 38 in this book. You put up the HIPIP benefits. Did anybody question you as to how you got that resource? You put up structures for HIPIC. You labeled it benefit, HIPIC benefit. Did anybody tell you how you got that resource and how you have used it for?
I thought they knew.
Listen, what is important is that these structures were put up and it inured to the benefits of people who were there at that particular time. You have pictures of this, Ni Takitawia, a popular Ghana Dangbe queen who brought development and program. You list this as an achievement. Putting up a statue is listed as an achievement. Okay? You portrayed monkeys at Boabin Fiema. Monkeys at Boabin Fiema. Look, page 43. People doing deer hunting, abuacher, that predates the MPP.
Under what?
You listed it as an achievement.
Under tourism.
Under tourism. And was that an achievement even under tourism? Gabi, is that an achievement under tourism? You list monkeys at Boabin Fiema. Look, for me, this one is a killer. The Adai Kesi Festival of the Ashantis. You list it as an achievement. Adai outdates the MPP. Adai Festival outdates the MPP. Abuachiri outdates the MPP. Kundum outdates the MPP. It is no achievement. It is no achievement. In your 4 years, these are the things we were listed. Monkeys at Boabin Fiema. Monkeys. You listed monkeys at Boabin Fiema as achievement. Look at the things you listed. Exchange of greetings with chiefs in the central region is an achievement. You put a picture. You publish a whole book. Exchange of greetings with chiefs. You list it as an achievement.
So, Kobe, on a face-to-face, on a face-to-face comparison of raw achievements, your argument is that the NDC administration has done a whole lot better than the MPP.
A whole lot better.
3 years.
Year-to-year comparison. Their first 4 years, our first 4 years. Their first 4 years, our first 4 years. You listed monkeys. Let me tell you the things we have done.
Quickly, and then I'll go to quick.
Yes, let me tell you the things we have gone. If you go to the pictorial session, we are listing places where you can find these things. We don't just say President Kufuor visiting a construction site in the central region. Where in the central region? Where? You cannot provide any specific. President Kufuor visiting a construction site. Where in the central region? Places in the central region are exactly located. Where in the central region? We are giving you exact places. If we say Vitin Klein, you know where it is, Tamale metropolitan area. We are putting all this there for people to be able to go and verify for themselves. Because, no, please, let me finish. Quickly. Let me finish. You gave Gabi all the time to say all the things he wanted to say, his philosophy. You allowed him to do it. Please let me do what I have to do.
Go ahead, and then I'll move to quick.
Good, let me do that. We put this thing up for a simple reason. People live in different parts of the country. You might live in Shama, you might not know what is going on in Joji. That is why we've put the pictures for people to be able to know that, oh, okay, I live here, I see these things here. Apparently, the same thing or a similar thing is happening on the other side. This gives everybody an opportunity to say, oh, I can relate to this because it is in my neighborhood. That is the essence of this. And the comparison, it should not be made. You talk about the word unprecedented. You listed so many meanings for unprecedented.
The first 3 years of NDC started from 93. So I just should
the first 3 years of NDC started from 93. No, please stop that. You see, that's the point.
I mean, you keep saying
you guys can't find anything to talk about this book. You can't find anything. So you are moving to non-entities. You are moving to things that do not really exist.
Let me bring
you can't find anything.
The argument that Gabi makes, Kobe makes, is that it's a matter of strict achievement to achievement. The resource question is immaterial here. And if you look on the face of achievement to achievement, they've done better than the NPP did in its first 3 years. First of all, should that be the context for this analysis? And then my final question, at the end of the day, the impact on the everyday Ghanaian out there is what we seek to examine. Let me hear your submissions before we move to our next topic.
You know, I've been wondering what informed the NDC while it's in opposition from 2001 to 2009. What informed their persistent reminder to the MPP administration, 1 and 2, that the NDC contracted loans and left those loans behind for the NPP to apply? What was that? They held a press conference. It's a long list of NDC loans contracted in 2000. Bequeathed to the NPP government. Okay? Long list. We can't go through it. This is donor funds secured by NDC and committed to specific trunk roads bequeathed to the MPP government. And this was read by the good professor himself as candidate Mills. Persistently. Why were they doing that? If it's moot, if it's not of any material relevance. They were telling us that, look here, in our period, we mobilized, we secured such loans for projects, and you came and continued. And indeed, they were insisting that the MPP was not giving them enough credit for those things. So they were demanding credit to be given. I thought that if consistency was anything to go by, we would proceed on the same logic. And today, not tell anybody that it's immaterial what you left behind because it's for the nation. Yeah, we all know it's for the nation. That's the bottom line. But you see, the inconsistency is the point I'm pointing out.
There's no inconsistency in it.
I was quiet.
Yeah,
when you
but
were
there's no
delivering,
inconsistency in it.
I was quiet.
Kobe, let him make his point.
You use
I
the
was
word bequeath,
absolutely-
and bequeath means it's carried over.
Kobe,
Come on.
let him make his point.
I allow you to make it up, but I'm telling you, there's no
Even when the
inconsistency.
oil
You've made that
fine,
point. Go
There's
ahead.
no inconsistency in it.
Go ahead with your submissions.
even when the oil fine was made, the commercial quantities, NDC people said was Adrengo. They knew there had been processes earlier on, but they said was Adrengo, and actually went back.
Was it Adrengo or dirty oil?
No, they said Adrengo.
Okay.
They went back and brought a publication of the 1970s when Araposa announced before Parliament the Sopon find and said, oh, this is just another
Propaganda.
exercise in futility. It won't end us anywhere. We all tend to forget. Yes, it's true. Oil exploration history began before the LPP. That's obvious. But everybody knows too that the GMPC had to be refocused. There had been hundreds of oil companies in this country who had come and gone. And many were exiting because they thought it was a barren territory. You needed to bring the right investor with the right capital outlay, with the right technical competence, and the right management. But is that the argument? Is it not obvious when the Minister of Finance goes to Parliament and reads the budget? This is budget 2011, 16th November 2011 by Dr. Kobradon Dufo. What is he saying here? Madam Speaker, following the progress made in implementing our economic program in 2010, prudent policies were adopted in 2011 to continue with the macroeconomic stabilization process. The following targets were set for 2011 fiscal year. Real GDP growth, excluding oil, of 7.5%. Real GDP growth, including oil, of 14.4%. Why is he doing that? Why does the Statistical Service also do this desegregation? It is a recognition of the fact that oil has a certain percentage. Yeah, we all know cocoa, all the rest have. All do. You can do that desegregation and find each one's percentage contribution. But everybody knows that oil in commercial quantities, 2007, an unprecedented development. Oil coming on stream, production 2010, unprecedented development. The Ghanaian economy fundamentally changed. So the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, in reading this budget to the House of Parliament, finds it necessary to do this desegregation and tell you how much oil is contributing.
And so for you, for that matter, we cannot wish that resource question away. It is one that must be factored into the discussion.
It would have been unnecessary, but for the fact that somebody is stating it in a publication and saying that it's unprecedented achievement, 13.6% growth rate, GDP growth rate is unprecedented. Now, my understanding, and it's good Gabby read what unprecedented.
Now, I've got just about 2 minutes to wrap up this conversation quickly.
Wow. My understanding is that it ought to have been due to a singular, extraordinary intervention or initiative by a particular government within 3.5 years in order to agree that this is indeed an achievement of unprecedented proportions by that particular government. And I'm saying, of course. We didn't say, no. Can I
Very
talk?
simplistic.
I agree. You can insult me. I'm
not
very
insulting you.
simplistic.
I'm not insulting you.
Listen.
It's a simplistic argument.
You were here.
He's got just like a minute to finish.
Listen,
Quickly finish, just like a minute.
Facts on their own mean nothing. It's when you relate facts
Simplistic
that you
argument.
get the significance. Okay? And I'm saying, if you state here that you have achieved an unprecedented feat.
When did it happen? Under whose watch did that happen?
You lie.
Yeah, I'm talking unprecedented oil production in 2007. Under whose watch did that happen?
Corey, let him quickly finish his submission. We'll go for a break. When I give you your next time and you want to use it to respond to it, you can. Kweku, please wrap up your submission.
I am saying
we're running out of time.
That we are being told that in 3.5 years, a particular government, due to a singular extraordinary action, has achieved 13.6. Now we are even told statistical service 14.4.
About 14, yeah.
And I am saying that that's a fact. But you must get other facts to relate to find the significance. If you hadn't said it is your achievement, unprecedented, I would not be arguing. The country Ghana has attained this. That's good. But you are attributing that attainment to your singular action.
And in
I'm
this
saying
case, in your view, that's not the case.
Of dubious validity.
Okay, we are 15 minutes. We are 15 minutes after 11. We're going to go. I know. We are 15 minutes after 11. We'll go for a quick break, and when we return, we'll start off with our next conversation. Stay with us. This is Newsfile. It's 22 minutes after 11. Good morning to you still, and thank you for staying with us. We went for a little break, and we're back. Let me just remind you that if you love talking or texting or surfing opportunities on the internet, there's something unique for you only on MTN. Each week, you enjoy unique offers from MTN, from free credit, free SMS to free data. Introducing MTN Just For You, a unique offer specially designed for you. All you've got to do is to dial 515 or send JFU to short code 515 to know your unique offer for the week today. MTN Just For You, uniquely yours. MTN everywhere you go. We are going for the final bit of our discussion, and it's got to do with the STX deal. I would first read some of your comments on some of our discussions that we've been having so far, and then we would ask a few questions of the STX deal and the fallout currently. Bongo Mampong. A text says, please, Mr. President, don't just talk. Action is what we need. Ali Malau from Sunyai says, a mere party manifesto would not progress with us. What Ghanaians need is a common national goal and policy. Jonathan Yati says, it's surprising that the Gargantuan STX housing project is out of this green book. How do you want the good people of Ghana to vote for the NDC? Wafa in Tamale says, Ghanaians are not talking of comparison. All what we are saying is the NDC has failed, and so we will not vote for them in 2012. Still a few more of your comments. Let me just run through some of them. Shadrach J. Kwache from Koforidua says, Kojo, the people of Libya led by the late Muammar Gaddafi had a green book, and you all recall the good work the late president achieved. Singapore also had a green book, which is now reflecting in their economy. The NDC should spare Ghanaians because we can't see anything in their so-called green book. And I'm looking for some other comments to be able to share with you. Hi, Kojo. I think Kufuor rather had much luxury and benefit than other presidents. He had much more debts, cancellations, and even much more stability. And more of your thoughts that are coming through, I'll share them shortly. Let's talk about the STX deal. And as we wrap up our conversation, we'll remind ourselves that we have these conversations for the benefit of our viewers and our listeners and the millions who are watching and listening all over the world. And that's why we try very much sometimes when we get a bit excited to calm it down so that we don't disrespect you watching or listening at home. Government has announced a pullout from the STX deal and is awaiting advice from the Attorney General on what to make of that deal. A few questions. Is this a genuine case of a good project gone bad? Or was government just foolhardy here? Have we suffered any loss? And should people perhaps be held accountable for it? And both the NDC and the MPP promised affordable housing. They've tried different things. What are the results? Are the results such that we can now say, listen, what we need to do is to next time around depoliticize housing and find a more feasible option? First, there's a bit of news coming in from the Minister for Works and Housing. I want to share it with you. I understand we have an insert I want to play to you, and then we'll continue our conversation. Stay with us.
Government has been forced to take proper steps to protect the interests of the country. Accordingly, government has decided to repossess with immediate effect all the 15 sites that were handed over to the STX and has advised the relevant agencies to withhold any benefits that would have accrued to STX. In due course, government will present to you the specific steps that are being taken to ensure that the housing required for our security personnel is provided. As a first step, a housing project management committee has been set up in the Ministry of Water Resources, Works and Housing, with a mandate to receive and review all proposals on housing.
That's the Honorable E.T. Mensah speaking to the press. Well, from his office, the Public Relations Officer has issued a statement. It was issued yesterday. It answers one of our questions this morning as to whether or not there's any loss that's been incurred that could have been avoided and whether or not people should be held accountable. Let me just read for your benefit part of that statement. It says the Ministry of Water Resources, Works and Housing has assured Ghanaians that no government funds whatsoever have been paid to STX Engineering and Construction Ghana Limited for the construction of the 30,000 housing units. The assurance was given by the PR of the ministry, Abraham Otabo, in reaction to comments by the Honorable Osei Mensah, Minority Leader in Parliament yesterday. The PRO states that what the nation has lost rather is valuable time occasioned by the inability of the partners to reconcile their differences and the ensuing boardroom disagreements. He goes on, however, to say that despite this initial setback, the government is determined to proceed with its agenda to provide the needed housing for the citizens of Ghana. Gabi, and you spoke a lot about the STX deal, from its beginning. Is this just a good project, gone bad, or was government foolhardy? We are being told now that no, monies have been paid to STX Engineering and Construction Ghana. But have we lost any monies through any other means? And is it possible for us to find another way of providing affordable housing in a manner devoid of politics, in a manner that actually sees results, not effort, at the end of the day?
I think the STX was in the first Green Book, huh?
I'm not sure. I do not readily recall.
I think until the NDC came along, I thought the only place you could find achievement before work was in the dictionary. But it appears with the NDC, achievements come before work. They've treated the STX as if it is the announcement of the death of a chief. You know what happens when a chief dies? They keep it quiet until a lot of consultations have been completed. I mean, STS was dead from, I would say, conception. It really ought not to have happened in the first place. You see, when you talk about a government without a program, STX to me shows that. Because nowhere in their manifesto, even nowhere in the President's State of the Nation address, at the very particular moment when he mentioned that he is sending his vice to Korea to put the final nail in the coffin. So it was there before it started. Even then, that wasn't in the statement. Because at that State of the Nation address, he spoke about social housing and instructing DCs and municipal chief executives to try and build some social housing. So it appears that the government, it was not a plan or part of the program of the government. You have a company from Korea that its debt to equity ratio was about 597%. Cash assets of $2 billion, debts of $6.9 billion. The Korean president had come into office saying that he's going to go out there and seek businesses for Korean companies. And Ghana, foolish Ghana, oh yes, come. You want to build 10...
That may be a bit unfair.
Oh, no, it's very
I would rather if you use another expression.
Okay, I'll do. For your sake, I'll do that. I'll do that. Oh, of course. Why is Ghana? You prefer that?
I prefer that.
Absolutely. Oh, come. You want to build, what, 200,000 houses for us at $10 billion. Excellent, come. This is a company that had been in operation for 4 years. Their housing capacity, they didn't even have 6,000 houses in their name. Okay? And they want to build houses for us at $50,000. Something that Ghanaian companies could do. Average, because 200,000 at 10 billion. And even if we had 10 billion or 5 billion or 2 billion, would we use it in that manner? Whilst we could build 30,000 houses at about half or even less than half the cost, using Ghanaian labor, money will stay in Ghana. Even somehow finding a consortium of local banks to leverage that money. Because at the end of the day, you wouldn't perhaps need more than 200 million a year. You know, no, nothing went into this. We didn't think about it. The 260 million insurance premium that the political risk insurance they're asking for, isn't it what the vice president was telling us 2 days ago, that they will use it to build 200 schools? And we were ready to do that. And you know the explanation for it? Because NPP messed up when the NPP came into office. The Malaysians and those people are not happy because of how we treated those at Ghana Telecom. So that is why they're asking for political risk insurance. And we were getting into this deal, and we're using our oil. So when some of us raised the issue and said, no, you can't use the oil to collateralize, it immediately took away the attractiveness of the deal. And my brother, you know a little bit about banking. If anybody comes to you and he hasn't identified for you the source of funding, and then he tells you, look, I'll give you interest rate of what, 2%, grace period 5 years, repayment 15 years, maturity 20 years, management fee 0.50, you know, facility fee 0.75%, and all these, all the conditions are there. And they don't know where they're getting the money from. So they sit in their boardroom where the wranglings eventually took place, and then, you know, just invented some figures, and we accepted it as a nation, and the government thought that those of us who criticized it were jealous. We were jealous of, shall I say, the crass incompetence that was being displayed in the name of this nation.
But we're told we haven't lost any money, and the government is going to explore other options. The minority is asking, in my mind, what sounds like a probe into this matter. You support that call?
First of all, last year, Bagbin, the minister who behaved like an optimist who was falling down a tall building, and halfway down the line, said, so far, so good. Because everybody knew where this STS was going. It was going to be a crash landing. What did he say? Oh, Barclays, all this, all that, all that. The other day, he said last year that they will pay whatever government has spent on them. And when you look at the deal, government is supposed to pay for their legal costs, all incidental costs, traveling, all that stuff, including $20 million of facility fee, arrangement fee, management fee and arrangement fee put together, okay? And then the political risk. So it is easy to say that government possibly would have spent some money, because the former minister said it when he was minister, that they will pay whatever we have spent on them. A few days ago, the new minister also said it, and it takes the PRO to come and clarify it. So at the end of the day, I think, yes, it requires more than, because if you remember, the Koreans, when they were leaving, and they were trying to somehow pass the deal over, you know where we found the sovereign guarantee? In Nigeria. I have a copy of that sovereign guarantee. That's how it ended in Nigeria. You know, when they were leaving, they were demanding $18 million as money that they had spent chasing this deal. Then we should ask ourselves, so how did the Koreans spend $18 million? Who, if possible, were the recipients of that money? Is that kickbacks or whatever it is? So, yeah, there are two sides to it. Whether they've lost their money, that's their problem. At the end of the day, we can go into the integrity of it. If they want to demand it from people here, that's their problem. But the important thing is that per the agreement that was executed, execution date means that's the day that you pay this $20 million and all that, and their traveling expenses and the rest of it. Government should tell us, let's have more transparency on this. Of course, the 264 million insurance, that was supposed to be paid up front. But I thought the understanding was that once they raised the money that was required, they were going to take it out from there. But government can explain all those things to us.
Mr. Dosari, let me ask of you, and you had earlier mentioned at some point that maybe government should, you know, jettison this idea and come clean and let's move on. You should be happy by now that has finally happened. Government has made that position clear. But are there any lessons from here, or do we still maybe need to go back into Parliament for that probe to understand what really took place here?
Could you, before I respond to that question, I want to ask Gabi, who this morning is trying to proving to Ghanaians that he is on top of issues, a good advisor and all of that. Unfortunately, they took some money Eurobond in 2008, 750 million. We are having to pay in excess of $600 million as interest on 750 for a period of 10 years. So if he has any advice, prudent advice as to how one should exercise prudence in terms of borrowing.
Maybe that's what he's learned from, and that's why he's...
Well, I just want Ghanaians to know that, you see, if you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. Okay? This was done right under his nose. What was his advice to the previous government? Okay, so...
But in fairness, this has happened. Are we drawing lessons? Are we going back into Parliament for a probe on this?
Wonderful. I think that Parliament has the power to do anything as regards whatever has happened to STS. But for me, the facts are there. Okay, nobody is hiding anything. I think this has come rather later than I thought should have come. That is my only regret, and it has been acknowledged in the press release that if there's anything we've lost, it is time. For me, that is where it ends. So we are looking forward as a government. We have made it point blank to Ghanaians how committed we are to this housing, to address this housing deficit. We've demonstrated that clearly in our previous regime. The number of housing projects we initiated, the opportunities that we gave to private investors in the housing sector. So certainly, we are not going to renege on our effort to, move forward in that direction. This has happened. We've drawn lessons from it. And for me, if this didn't happen, certainly there are certain problems or let's say issues we couldn't have managed the way we've done. As I sit here, I can tell you without a shadow of doubt that before the end of 2012, we will see completed houses.
Okay, under which program is that?
I cannot disclose everything.
Give me some small filler.
No, we'll talk later. But that is, I'm sitting here, my name is Edu Asare. Take me for my word. If it doesn't happen, I'll come and apologize, but I know what I'm talking about. Because you know, please, if you can ask Gabi, he knows what my passion has been on STS right from the onset. We were at the forefront in all the debates. We met on several platforms and discussed it. That was why the documents he's referring to, I have copies of it. That was what I saw at that time, and I said, look, this thing, let's cut it off at this point and move on, so we can buy time and move if there need be. So that is it. We have learned our lessons, and we are moving on. That is different, or we want to place that on record, versus the NPP. What is their record on housing? None. That is the point. None. And so for me, when they sit here, and all they can do is to... Gabi, on this program, has only succeeded in trying to find faults. If you ask him, what is it that they are bringing on board? Ghanaians want to know. What is the NPP's post? What are they coming on board? In the last 5 or 6 months, the candidate of the NPP has been going around. We've been trying to get one line of message. It's not coming through.
He's put a few ideas on the table about education and all, but I'm
Please,
sure
is that
that's
all
not
we are
what we're
talking
going to
about?
discuss. Let me come to my good friend Kobe, who's been having a ball with me here today. Kobe, do we need to go back into Parliament for a probe on this particular subject? Question number 2, was government just foolhardy? Because many people raised questions initially.
Well, I wouldn't say government was foolhardy. Never. I mean, this was an exercise in the implementation of public-private partnerships. What I think went wrong was the fact that we could not probably scrutinize the Ghanaian partner very well, probably the Korean partners. I mean, if I'm to go by the kind of information I have, whoever was the Ghanaian partner probably didn't live up to his billing, and that's why this issue has gotten to where it is. What we have lost actually is time, because from the time that this thing was commissioned, if there had been work done, we would have seen results that would have inured to the benefit of the security agencies. So for me, going back into Parliament to conduct a probe is an exercise that I'll call fruitless. because this was passed by Parliament. Osechi Mensah, who is talking as if he knew nothing about this, was a member of the delegation that went to Korea. Was a member of the delegation that went to Dubai. Abu Dhabi, to look at all the housing estates that the STS people had put up.
He still opposed it.
Well, if he still, yes, he still opposed it, but at the end of the year part, and the Parliament of Ghana ratified it. Now you want to go back and see whether we spend money or not. Fine, if there's evidence that can be adduced to support that claim, that is okay, let them look into it. But I believe what we have lost is invaluable time.
Beyond the lesson of scrutiny, is there any other lesson we've learned in an exercise of this nature? And I mentioned that, for instance, when you say scrutiny, I would, for instance, raise CNTSA and a few other things where, again, the answer was given that maybe we should have done a bit more scrutiny. Beyond the lesson of scrutiny, is there any other lesson that as a country, having come this far, having excited our populace with all of these ideas for all of these projects, we have learned?
Well, in terms of lessons, I will still go back to the private sector people. Because if you look at the fact that a lot of the problems faced by STS had to do with boardroom wrangling, I'll place that problem right there. The lesson. You know, sometimes governments need to, intervene. I mean, in Korea, they do that a lot. Korean companies have government hands firmly on it because they want to make sure you are doing the right thing or something that inures to the benefit of the country. If you look at all the companies, Samsung, they all had government direct control. And then gradually, it is lifted off so that the private sector now takes full control. I think this is something that we also need to look at because if you put all this money out there and there's just boardroom wrangling, people cannot agree and it stalls a whole project, what have you gotten out of it? Just disagreement on, okay, maybe we should do it this way. You said, no, we should do it this way. And you cannot go beyond that. Then what have we achieved? You understand? So it's important that government leaves an imprint. I mean, of these such projects that requires, commitment of such funds, government needs to take, for the private sector role where there was an individual Ghanaian in, I think government should have actually bought directly into the project.
So the government would have perhaps had more of a say in how things happen there.
Yes.
Okay. Kweku, let me ask of you that same question. Was government foolhardy, just obstinate and not listening at any point, or this is just a good project that just went bad because of boardroom wranglings? Later, I'll come around the table for our final comments on moving on, looking at the history, or the recent history, if we can do this better next time around.
I gave this project full support publicly. I was on the side of government on this matter. And indeed, I had running battles with Gabi, mostly private, but few on public platforms.
Gabi thought you were being a deviant.
Yeah, he thought I was wrong. He was trying to educate me, give me details, and I was stubborn. I thought the principle was a good project. And I also didn't think there was any deceit, element of deceit or anything anywhere. I was convinced. So I was publicly for it. And when things began to fall apart, I was getting a lot of heat under my feet. And especially when the president indicated somewhere along the line the preparedness of government to eat an humble pie, and all those things came out. It's embarrassing, let's face it. We may have lost time, maybe not money. That is something we must double check. To be honest with you, I think some monies may have been applied, but I don't think significant enough to create any hue and cry. But time is also of essence. You see, the morale, can you imagine the euphoria that was created relative to the security services personnel? I believe even the day they were approving it, police people were at the Parliament House in the gallery. All that became a big issue. So, to be honest, time is of essence, but it has an effect on integrity as well as morale. Integrity of government, integrity, the morale of the people who were the target for that provision of the housing. Especially, you see, when there were all sorts of arguments being raised, some of which I ignored myself, let me be honest with you. One or two were good. Greater, there was this point about what we could do with our own local people. They presented a document to Parliament, I believe. You had all sorts of comments from the professional groups, the architects, the surveyors, and all the rest. And quite a lot of these things were more or less ignored. They were spoken to, but they were ignored at the end of the day. You know, so it's not a question of just losing time. It's a question of sometimes a certain degree of undermining of the integrity of governance. And so I think Parliament must recall the minister. The minister must go back to Parliament. That's the best platform. Radio, TV, newspapers, we can all talk some, quote unquote, but it will not be sufficient. So the minister responsible for water resources, works and housing ought to go back to the House. He must be called to the House and a proper scrutiny and review of this matter undertaken. That would help us. It will inform future things. This failure is not peculiar to this government. It's something that has been happening off and on, but almost an unprecedented collapse of a gargantuan project.
Let me come around the table for our final wrap. And this is what I would call a consensus national conversation. Knowing what we know, for instance, focusing on the subject of affordable housing. And I'm starting with you on this one. The MPP tried to do affordable housing with local contractors and government of Ghana funds. They built to a certain extent. You know, we see what it is today. They were hoping that the NDC will complete and move on. The NDC expressed its view on that. They tried to do, you know, contractor financed, in this case using STX. They've bent their fingers there, to borrow the words of Koko Anyidoho. Moving on a consensus platform, taking away all the politics and all, is there a better way to answer this affordable housing question for our people? We're told that the housing gap continues to grow.
Sure. Immediately, government must take steps to complete those affordable houses that were left uncompleted by the previous administration. The other issues of accountability, which I believe the minister had raised earlier during a tour of those facilities, can be dealt with. But immediately, you see, because whilst that debate was going on, there were people who were proposing to government that also finish those things. By now, we could have had accommodation for some of the security personnel or any other public service workers. So that is immediate, that's short term. But in the long term, or even medium and long term, I thought I heard the minister suggest that a certain National Housing Management Committee also has been set up. Did I hear him right? That if it's transparent and has equity forming it, will be okay. The locals, the graders and the rest who have proven over the years their capability in delivering housing units, I think will be brought on board. And some of this support that government was ready to deliver or to provide to STS could easily be rechanneled to those groups. So the way forward is what is important. It's good for political elements. People will keep talking about STS to score political capital and all the rest. That's something we can't avoid. But I think the focus should be on a new initiative that would satisfy, you know, the national interest. And we move forward and provide housing, kill the deficit.
I heard the State Housing Company recently trying to raise some money. And now we are hearing of the National Housing Committee. Has government determined a clear path forward? My good friend, Honorable Medrasari, is hinting at something in the pipelines. Moving on, learning the lessons we've learned both from the MPP era, maybe the successes of the SNF flats in the past, and even with today's failure and the challenges we were confronted with. You know, you walk in the corridors of power. What does the future behold for us?
Well, you know, we've moved on from the SNF flat concern where government basically took complete control, decided to build it out of its resources. That has been done. These days, we talk more about public-private partnership. What I think the private sector is facing is the reluctance of the banks to give them the kind of money they need to engage in such projects. That's how I see it, you know, because the banks, I don't know whether it's because we've not developed a real mortgage sector that allows people to put money in a project, rent it out, and people pay mortgage to defray the cost of those things. I'm beginning to think if we develop a real strong, like it happens elsewhere, you go and buy a house, you go to the bank, you sign your agreement with the bank, you pay your mortgage, and then that is used to defray it. We need to see how best we can strengthen that element of our housing industry so that people who have the capacity but do not have the financial wherewithal can call on the banks. That's why I heard somebody from Greta calling for the establishment of a bank that caters solely to, you know, real estate developers.
Because the banks would explain to you that it's about the source of their funds. If they don't have long-term funds, they cannot do that.
Exactly, and it's easier to even spend their money doing buying and selling, which comes back in 10, 15 days, they get their money back.
So do we have an answer for that challenge of theirs?
That's what I'm saying. We need to encourage the banks to begin to take another look at how best they can leverage the kind of risk that they'll be exposed to so that this thing can take off. Other than that, if we have to go by this public-private partnership with a private sector operator not having the capacity or bringing in a foreign partner where simple issues cannot be addressed, we'll always come back to this kind of stalemates.
Mr. Dwasari?
Yeah. I will say point blank that affordable housing in the, for the NPP during their era was an afterthought. It never featured in their earlier plans until they realized Ghanaians were crying for it. They concentrated more on luxury buildings, okay, 250,000 plus buildings, and we have records of how much they spent on those buildings around behind 37 military hospital, the Kanda area. That is what they were actually busy about until the pressure started mounting. We, the NDC, we have said that we are committed to the affordable housing scheme, and I can again tell you, because this is a passion for me, all right? I have seen people go back and forth from the Botema project, doing their own evaluation and all of that, and proposals are being sent to the ministry to address that situation. If you add that to what I know again about, you know, this security, housing for the security agencies and all of that, by the end of this year, I know some will be delivered, and then subsequently, if God permits, and we get a second term, much of whatever has to be built will also be built. So we are on course, Kojo, and I think we'll leave it there.
Gary, you've, you know, may I say, have you become a housing expert lately since the STX deal came up? Because you have spent a lot of time, you know, on this subject. Knowing what we know, lessons for the future.
Well, first of all, I mean, I also advocated for the affordable housing under the NPP. You know, so I for that.
That
yes,
hasn't been debated.
Yes, you know, so I support affordable housing, but it must mean affordable housing. You see, the difficulty with the NDC is they seem to be suffering from delusions of achievements, not just on STX and everything. Look, when you read the statement from the PRO, it says, it's an interesting admission there, and the two men here from the NDC have also supported that. It says that what the nation has lost, rather, is valuable time. This 4 years, what the nation is losing is valuable time. The STX, to me, epitomizes what we have been through over the last 4 years, and the president knows. Look, you can't, for instance, look, my brother, if you look in this achievement, they talk about government also presented 6,000 Longda motorbikes valued at 10.8 million. That's about what? 10.8 million to the more than 6,000 assembly members. You know how much Longda, if you go on Alibaba.com, the business-to-business website, Longda motorbikes, they sell them for $320. Look at how much they were sold to Ghanaians. And this is the government going to acquire them. And you are acquiring them in bulk. A thinking government would even think, look, we are acquiring 6,000 of them. And we may be doing that every year. We may want that for nurses. Let's try and see if we can attract them to come and build a plant here. But we go and buy it. Look, we go and buy something that is
motorbike costs
$320 million, $320. Go on the website. You are buying 6,000 of them, and you pay what? You know what? Unit cost of 1,780
buildings. Do you know how much you bought it for? Caps.
This is the difficulty facing us all. The inflated and reckless manner in which resources are being dissipated. That's really the difficulty. So, my brother, the PRO was absolutely apt. You know, valuable time is being wasted We can't wait 4 more years. I'm telling you.
Let me wrap up with what our listeners think of the various discussions that
have you
we have had.
There's a building here
gentlemen.
the whole university. Yeah? That building apparently is for the regional head of the urban roads.
See, in your list of Gabby.
That's
monkeys and
But if you are building university, the first thing you put up is administration.
Gentlemen,
I won't let this comment.
Gentlemen, I have
been to home myself.
Gentlemen, you have had your say. You've had your say. Gabby, hold it. You've had your say. You have had your say. You have had your say. Let's hear what our listeners think. Just very quickly, 30 seconds. And then I'll show you what our listeners say.
I will dare Gabby today. I will pay his I'll drive him myself. Pay him per diem if he wants it.
To go and show him that building. Okay, let me tell you what our listeners say. Let me tell you what our listeners say.
Would you believe if he says he'll pay you?
Let me tell you what our listeners say. Sonny Kwashi says the failure of the STX does not mean the government is not performing. We know people who failed in other things, but are not described as failures. They reorganized and passed later. Surah Katu, and I do edit quite a good number of the text, as I'm sure you have been sitting and have been reading. Surah Katu Sani says, it is indeed sad that as a country we are still comparing errors as to whose errors were extremely high. If we should continue in this way, posterity will judge the current leadership. Abdul Bashiru Aliyu says, Kobi, if resources are petty issues, then your green book is more of a petty and unnecessary exercise. Baba Adam from Cape Coast says, it was absolutely incorrect to say the President Kufuor and the MPP did nothing. It will also be unfortunate to say that the current government has done nothing. Paul Soa says, tell the NDC to focus on what they want to say and to stop creating interventions. Benjamin Amwa Benamwa says, Green Book, what a joke. You give such gargantuan amount of money to Mr. Woyome and it was not recorded in the Green Book. You have not been able to fight corruption by even successfully retrieving the so-called stolen monies from former government appointees, and yet you waste our time with this Green Book. Mek from the KNUST says, if the achievements of the NDC are visible, why do we need a Green Book? Houston, listening in the United Kingdom, says, upon all the crescendos the NDC is making about their achievements, are these reflecting in the pockets of an ordinary Ghanaian? And that was a question I was asking you. You didn't give me an answer. You repeated my question to me. Kwesi Etuahene says, the indicators that the government has mentioned in the Green Book are very good. But looking at the economy itself, how are these indicators driving the growth in the traditional sectors of the economy? When you look at the middle income emerging economies in Africa, Ghana is not doing very well in the industrial sector. 14% growth is good, but how well is it impacting on the traditional sectors of the economy? I want to say thank you to my production team, to Yaya, to our cameramen, to our sound engineers, to John Apia, Sedemofori, Kofi Ansa, and the production team for putting the show together. I want to thank my guest, Kweku Baku Jr., and his very good friend, Kobi Champong, I keep calling you Swagger, so sometimes it skips me, Mr. Duasare, and Gabi Ochiridakon for joining us with their thoughts. My name is Kojo. Let me leave you with these words as you go about the political activities this year. Do not provoke, and do not allow yourself to be provoked. Let calm heads prevail